Belinda and Harper Audio Australia present this unabridged recording of Boy Swallows Universe, written by Trent Dalton and read by Stig Weems. The dedication reads, "For Mum and Dad, for Joel, Ben and Jessie." Boy writes words. Your end is a dead blue wren. Did you see that, Slim? See what? Nothing. Your end is a dead blue wren. No doubt about it. Your end, no doubt about it, is a dead blue wren. The crack in Slim's windscreen looks like a tall and armless stick man bowing to royalty. The crack in Slim's windscreen looks like Slim. His windscreen wipers have smeared a rainbow of old dirt over to my passenger side. Slim says a good way for me to remember the small details of my life is to associate moments and visions with things on my person or things in my regular waking life that I see and smell and touch often. Body things, bedroom things, kitchen things. This way, I will have two reminders of any given detail for the price of one. That's how Slim beat Black Peter. That's how Slim survived the hole. Everything had two meanings. One for here being where he was then, cell D9, 2 Division, Boggo Road Jail, and another for there, that boundless and unlocked universe expanding in his head and his heart. Nothing in the here but 4 green concrete walls and darkness upon darkness, and his lone and stationary body. An angle iron and steel mesh bed welded to a wall, a toothbrush and a pair of cloth prison slippers. But a cup of old milk slid through a cell door slot by a silent screw took him there, to Ferny Grove in the 1930s, the lanky young farmhand milking cows on the outskirts of Brisbane. A forearm scar became a portal to a boyhood bike ride. A shoulder sunspot was a wormhole to the beaches of the Sunshine Coast. One rub and he was gone. An escaped prisoner here in D9, pretend free but never on the run, which was as good as how he had been before they threw him in the hole, real free but always on the run. He'd thumb the peaks and valleys of his knuckles and they would take him there, to the hills of the Gold Coast hinterland, take him all the way to Springbrook Falls, and the cold steel prison bed frame of cell D9 would become a water-worn limestone rock, and the prison hole's cold concrete floor beneath his bare feet summer warm water to dip his toes into, and he would touch his cracked lips and remember how it felt when something as soft and as perfect as Irene's lips reached his, how she took all his sins and all his pain away with her quenching kiss, washed him clean like Springbrook Falls washed him clean with all that white water bucketing on his head. I'm more than a little concerned that Slim's prison fantasies are becoming mine. Irene resting on that wet and mossy emerald boulder, naked and blonde, giggling like Marilyn Monroe, head back and loose and powerful, master of any man's universe, keeper of dreams. A vision there to stick around for here, to let the any-time blade of a smuggled shiv wait another day. I had an adult mind, Slim always says. That's how he beat Black Peter, Boggo Road's underground isolation cell. They threw him in that medieval box for 14 days during a Queensland summer heatwave. They gave him half a loaf of bread to eat across 2 weeks, They gave him 4, maybe 5 cups of water. Slim says half of his Boggo Road prison mates would have died after a week in Black Peter, because half of any prison population, and any major city of the world for that matter, is filled with adult men with child minds. But an adult mind can take an adult man anywhere he wants to go. Black Peter had a scratchy coconut fibre mat that he slept on, the size of a doormat, or the length of one of Slim's long shin bones. Every day, Slim says, he lay on his side on the core mat and pulled those long shin bones into his chest and closed his eyes and opened the door to Irene's bedroom, and he slipped under Irene's white bedsheet, and he spooned his body gently against hers, and he wrapped his right arm around Irene's naked porcelain belly, and there he stayed for 14 days. Curled up like a bear and hibernated, he says. Got so cosy down there in hell I never wanted to climb back up. Slim says I have an adult mind in a child's body. I'm only 12 years old, but Slim reckons I can take the hard stories. Slim reckons I should hear all the prison stories of male rape and men who broke their necks on knotted bedsheets and swallowed sharp pieces of metal designed to tear through their insides and guarantee themselves a week-long vacation in the sunny Royal Brisbane Hospital. I think he goes too far sometimes with the details. Blood spitting from raped arseholes and the like. Light and shade, kid, Slim says. No escaping the light and no escaping the shade. I need to hear the stories about disease and death inside so I can understand the impact of those memories of Irene. Slim says I can take the hard stories because the age of my body matters nothing compared to the age of my soul, which he has gradually narrowed down to somewhere between the early 70s and dementia. Some months ago, sitting in this very car, Slim said he would gladly share a prison cell with me because I listen and I remember what I listened to. A single tear rolled down my face when he paid me this great roommate honour. Tears don't go so well inside, he said. I didn't know if he meant inside a prison cell or inside one's body. Half out of pride, I cried, half out of shame, because I'm not worthy, if worthy's a word for a bloke to share a lag with. Sorry, I said, apologising for the tear. He shrugged. There's more where that came from, he said. Your end is a dead blue wren. Your end is a dead blue wren. I will remember the rainbow of old dirt wiped across Slim's windscreen through the shape of the milky moon rising into my left thumbnail. And forevermore, when I look into that milky moon, I will remember the day Arthur Slim Halliday, the greatest prison escapee who ever lived, the wondrous and elusive Houdini of Boggo Road, taught me, Eli Bell, the boy with the old soul and the adult mind, prime prison cellmate candidate, the boy with his tears on the outside, to drive his rusted dark blue Toyota Land Cruiser. 32 years ago, in February 1953, after a 6-day trial in the Brisbane Supreme Court, a man named Judge Edwin James Droughton Stanley sentenced Slim to life for brutally bashing a taxi driver named Athol McCowan to death with a .45 Colt pistol. The papers have always called Slim the taxi driver killer. I just call him my babysitter. Clutch, he says. Slim's left thigh tenses as his old sun-brown leg, wrinkled with 750 lifelines because he might be 750 years old, pushes the clutch in. Slim's old sun-brown left hand shifts the gear stick. A hand-rolled cigarette burning to yellow, grey and then black, hanging precariously to the spit on the corner of his bottom lip. Neutral. I can see my brother, August, through the crack in the windscreen. He sits on our brown brick fence, writing his life story in fluid cursive with his right forefinger, etching words into thin air. Boy writes on air. Boy writes on air the way my old neighbour, Jean Crimmins, says Mozart played piano. Like every word was meant to arrive, parcel packed and shipped from a place beyond his own busy mind. Not on paper and writing pad or typewriter, but thin air, the invisible stuff, that great act of faith stuff that you might not even know existed did it not sometimes bend into wind and blow against your face. Notes, reflections, diary entries, all written on thin air, with his extended right forefinger swishing and slashing, writing letters and sentences into nothingness, as though he has to get it all out of his head, but he needs the story to vanish into space as well, forever dipping his finger into his eternal glass well of invisible ink. Words don't go so well inside, always better out than in. He grips Princess Leia in his left hand. Boy never lets her go. 6 weeks ago, Slim took August and me to see all 3 Star Wars movies at the Yatala Drive-In. We drank in that faraway galaxy from the back of his Land Cruiser, our heads resting on inflated cask wine bags that were themselves resting on an old dead mullet-smelling crab pot that Slim kept in the back near a tackle box and an old kerosene lamp. There were that many stars out that night over southeast Queensland that when the Millennium Falcon flew towards the side of the picture screen, I thought for a moment it might just fly on into our own stars, take the Lightspeed Express flight right on down to Sydney. "You listening?" barks Slim. "Yeah." "No, never really listening like I should. Always thinking too much about August, about Mum, about Lyle, about Slim's Buddy Holly spectacles, about the deep wrinkles in Slim's forehead, about the way he walks funny ever since he shot himself in the leg in 1952, about the fact that he's got a lucky freckle like me, about how he believed me when I told him my lucky freckle had a power to it, that it meant something to me, that when I'm nervous or scared or lost, my first instinct is to look at that deep brown freckle on the middle knuckle of my right forefinger. Then I feel better. "Sounds dumb, Slim," I said. "Sounds crazy, Slim," I said. But he showed me his own lucky freckle. Almost a mole, really, square on the knobby hill of his right wrist bone. He said he thought it might be cancerous, but it's his lucky freckle, and he couldn't bring himself to cut it out. In D9, he said, that freckle became sacred, because it reminded him of a freckle that Irene had high up on her inner left thigh, not far at all from her holiest of holies, and he assured me that one day I too would come to know this rare place on a woman's high inner thigh, and I too would know just how Marco Polo felt when he first ran his fingers over silk. I liked that story. So I told Slim how seeing that freckle on my right forefinger knuckle for the first time, at around the age of 4, sitting in a yellow shirt with brown sleeves on a long brown vinyl lounge, is as far back as my memory goes. There's a television on in that memory. I look down at my forefinger and see the freckle, and then I look up and turn my head right and see a face. I think it belongs to Lyle, but it might belong to my father, though I don't really remember my father's face. So the freckle is always consciousness. My personal Big Bang, the lounge, the yellow and brown shirt, and I arrive. I am here. I told Slim I thought the rest was questionable, that the 4 years before that moment might as well have never happened. Slim smiled when I told him that. He said that freckle on my right forefinger knuckle is home. Ignition. Oh, for fuck's sake, Socrates, what did I just say? Slim barks. Be careful to put your foot down? You were just staring right at me, You looked like you were listening, but you weren't fucking listening. Your eyes were wandering all over my face, looking at this, looking at that, but you didn't hear a word. That's August's fault. Boy don't talk. Chatty as a thimble, chin-waggy as a cello. He can talk, but he doesn't want to talk. Not a single word that I can recall. Not to me, not to Mum, not to Lyle, not even to Slim. He communicates fine enough, conveys great passages of conversation in a gentle touch of your arm, a laugh, a shake of his head. He can tell you how he's feeling by the way he unscrews a Vegemite jar lid. He can tell you how happy he is by the way he butters bread, how sad he is by the way he ties his shoelaces. Some days I sit across from him on the lounge, and we're playing Super Breakout on the Atari and having so much fun that I look across at him at the precise moment I swear he's going to say something. Say it, I say. I know you want to. Just say it. He smiles, tilts his head to the left and raises his left eyebrow, and his right hand makes an arcing motion, like he's rubbing an invisible snow dome, and that's how he tells me he's sorry. One day, Eli, you will know why I'm not speaking. This is not that day, Eli. Now have your fucking go. Mum says August stopped talking around the time she ran away from Dad. August was 6 years old. She says the universe stole her boy's words when she wasn't looking, when she was too caught up in the stuff she's going to tell me when I'm older. The stuff about how the universe stole her boy and replaced him with the enigmatic A-grade alien Loop I've had to share a double bunk bed with for the past 8 years. Every now and then, some unfortunate kid in August's class makes fun of August and his refusal to speak. His reaction is always the same. He walks up to that month's particularly foul-mouthed school bully, who is dangerously unaware of August's hidden streak of psychopathic rage, and, blessed with his established inability to explain his actions, he simply attacks the boy's unblemished jaw, nose and ribs with one of 3 16-punch boxing combinations my mum's longtime boyfriend Lyle has tirelessly taught both of us across endless winter weekends with an old brown leather punching bag in the backyard shed. Lyle doesn't believe in much, but he believes in the circumstance-shifting power of a broken nose. The teachers generally take August's side because he's a straight-A student, as dedicated as they come. When the child psychologists come knocking, Mum rustles up another glowing testimony from another school teacher about why August's a dream addition to any class and why the Queensland education system would benefit from more children just like him, completely fucking mute. Mum says when he was 5 or 6, August stared for hours into reflective surfaces. While I was banging toy trucks and play blocks on the kitchen floor as Mum made carrot cake, he was staring into an old circular makeup mirror of Mum's. He would sit for hours around puddles, looking down at his reflection, not in a Narcissus kind of way, but in what Mum thought was an exploratory fashion, like he was actually searching for something. I would pass by our bedroom doorway and catch him making faces in the mirror we had on top of an old wood veneer chest of drawers. "Found it yet?" I asked once when I was 9. He turned from the mirror with a blank face and a kink in the upper left corner of his top lip that told me there was a world out there beyond our cream-coloured bedroom walls that I was neither ready for nor needed in. But I kept asking him that question whenever I saw him staring at himself. "Found it yet?" He always stared at the moon, tracked its path over our house from our bedroom window. He knew the angles of moonlight. Sometimes, deep into the night, he'd slip out our window, unfurl the hose, and drag it in his pyjamas all the way out to the front gutter where he'd sit for hours, silently filling the street with water. When he got the angles just right, a giant puddle would fill with the silver reflection of a full moon. "The moon pool!" I proclaimed grandly one cold night. And August beamed, wrapped his right arm over my shoulders and nodded his head, the way Mozart might have nodded his head at the end of Jean Crimmins' favourite opera, Don Giovanni. He knelt down, and with his right forefinger he wrote 3 words in perfect cursive across the moon pool. "Boy swallows universe," he wrote. It was August who taught me about details, how to read a face, how to extract as much information as possible from the non-verbal, how to mine expression and conversation and story from the data of every last speechless thing that is right before your eyes, the things that are talking to you without talking to you. It was August who taught me I didn't always have to listen. I might just have to look. The Land Cruiser rattles to chunky metal life, and I bounce on the vinyl seat. 2 pieces of juicy fruit that I've carried for 7 hours slip from my shorts pocket into a foam cavity in the seat that Slim's old and loyal and dead white bitzer, Pat, regularly chewed on during the frequent trips the two made from Brisbane to the town of Jimna, north of Kilcoy, in Slim's post-prison years. Pat's full name was Patch, but that became a mouthful for Slim. He and the dog would regularly sift for gold in a secret Jimna backwoods creek bed that Slim believes, to this day, contains enough gold deposits to make King Solomon raise an eyebrow. He still goes out there with his old pan, the first Sunday of every month, but the search for gold ain't the same without Pat, he says. It was Pat who could really go for gold. The dog had a nose for it. Slim reckons Pat had a genuine lust for gold, the world's first canine to suffer a case of gold fever. "The glittery sickness," he says, "sent old Pat around the bend." Slim shifts the gear stick. "Be careful to push the clutch down. First, release the clutch. Gentle push on the accelerator, and steadily on the pedally." The hulking Land Cruiser moves forward 3 metres along our grassy curbside, and Slim brakes. The car parallel to August, still writing furiously into thin air with his right forefinger. Slim and I turn our heads hard left to watch August's apparent burst of creativity. When he finishes writing a full sentence, he dabs the air as though he's marking a full stop. He wears his favourite green t-shirt with the words, "You ain't seen nothin' yet," written across it in rainbow lettering. Floppy brown hair, borderline beetle cut. He wears a pair of Lyle's old blue and yellow Parramatta Eels supporter shorts, despite the fact that, at 13 years of age, at least 5 of which he has spent watching Parramatta Eels games on the couch with Lyle and me, he doesn't have the slightest interest in rugby league. Our dear mystery boy, our Mozart. August is 1 year older than me, but August is 1 year older than everybody. August is 1 year older than the universe. When he finishes writing 5 full sentences, he licks the tip of his forefinger, like he's inking a quill. Then he plugs back into whatever mystical source is pushing the invisible pen that scribbles his invisible writing. Slim rests his arm on the steering wheel, takes a long drag of his rollie, not taking his eyes off August. "What's he writing now?" Slim asks. August's oblivious to our stares, his eyes only following the letters in his personal blue sky. Maybe to him it's an endless ream of lined paper that he writes on in his head, or maybe he sees the black writing lines stretched across the sky. It's mirror writing to me. I can read it if I'm facing him at the right angle, if I can see the letters clear enough to turn them round in my head, spin them round in my mirror mind. Same sentence over and over this time. What's he saying? The sun over August's shoulder. White, hot god of a thing. a hand to my forehead. No doubt about it. Your end is a dead blue wren. August freezes. He stares at me. He looks like me, but a better version of me, stronger, more beautiful. Everything smooth on his face. Smooth like the face he sees when he stares into the moon pool. Say it again. Your end is a dead blue wren. August gives a half smile, shakes his head, looks at me like I'm the only one who's crazy. Like I'm the one who's imagining things. You're always imagining things, Eli. Yeah, I saw you. I've been watching you for the past 5 minutes. He smiles wide, furiously wiping his words from the sky with an open palm. Slim smiles wide too, shakes his head. That boy's got the answers, Slim says. To what? I wonder. To the questions, Slim says. He reverses the Land Cruiser, takes her back 3 metres, brakes. Your turn now. Slim coughs, chokes up brown tobacco spit that he missiles out the driver's window to our sun-baked and potholed bitumen street, running past 14 low-set sprawling fibro houses, ours and everybody else's in shades of cream, aquamarine and sky blue. Sandakan Street, Darra, my little suburb of Polish and Vietnamese refugees, and bad old days refugees like Mum and August and me. Exiled here for the past 8 years, hiding out far from the rest of the world, marooned survivors of the great ship hauling Australia's lower-class shit heap, separated from America and Europe and Jane Seymour by oceans and a darn pretty Great Barrier Reef, and another 7,000 kilometres of Queensland coastline, and then an overpass taking cars to Brisbane City, and separated a bit more still by the nearby Queensland Cement and Lime Company factory that blows cement powder across Darra on windy days and covers our rambling home's sky-blue fibro walls with dust that August and I have to hose off before the rain comes and sets the dust to cement, leaving hard grey veins of misery across the house front and the large window that Lyle throws his cigarette butts out of and I throw my apple cores out of, always following Lyle's lead because, and maybe I'm too young to know better, Lyle's always got a lead worth following. Darra is a dream, a stench, a spilt garbage bin, a cracked mirror, a paradise, a bowl of Vietnamese noodle soup filled with prawns, domes of plastic crab meat, pig ears and pig knuckles, and pig belly. Darra is a girl washed down a drain pipe, a boy with snot slipping from his nose, so ripe it glows on Easter night. A teenage girl stretched across a train track, waiting for the express to Central and beyond. A South African man smoking Sudanese weed. A Filipino man injecting Afghani dope next door to a girl from Cambodia, sipping milk from Queensland's Darling Downs. Darra is my quiet sigh, my reflection on war, my dumb preteen longing, my home. When do you reckon they'll be back? I ask. Soon enough. What'd they go see? Slim wears a thin bronze-coloured button-up cotton shirt tucked into dark blue shorts. He wears these shorts constantly, and he says he rotates between 3 pairs of the same shorts, but every day I see the same hole in the bottom right-hand corner of his rear pocket. His blue rubber thongs are normally moulded to his old and calloused feet, dirt-caked and sweat-stunk. But his left thong slips off now, caught on the clutch as he slides awkwardly out of the car. Houdini's getting on. Houdini's caught in the water chamber of Brisbane's outer western suburbs. Even Houdini can't escape time. Slim can't run from MTV. Slim can't run from Michael Jackson. Slim can't escape the 1980s. Terms of endearment, he says, opening the passenger door. I truly love Slim because he truly loves August and me. Slim was hard and cold in his youth. He's softened with age. Slim always cares for August and me, and how we're going and how we're going to grow up. I love him so much for trying to convince us that when Mum and Lyle are out for so long like this, they are at the movies and not, in fact, dealing heroin purchased from Vietnamese restaurateurs. Lyle choose that one? I have suspected Mum and Lyle are drug dealers since I found a 500-gram brick of Golden Triangle heroin stowed in the mower catcher in our backyard shed 5 days ago. I feel certain Mum and Lyle are drug dealers when Slim tells me they have gone to the movies to see Terms of Endearment. Slim gives me a sharp look. Slide over, smart-ass, he mumbles from the corner of his mouth. Clutch in. First. Steadily on the pedally. The car jolts forward and we're moving. Give it some gas, Slim says. My bare right foot goes down, leg fully extended, and we cross our lawn all the way to Mrs. Dunzinski's rosebush on the curbside next door. Get onto the road, Slim says, laughing. Hard right on the wheel, off the gutter, onto the Sandakan Street bitumen. Clutch in, second, Slim barks. Quicker now, past Freddie Pollard's place, past Freddie Pollard's sister, Evie, pushing a headless Barbie down the street in a toy pram. Should I stop? I ask. Slim looks in the rear-view mirror, darts his head to the passenger side mirror. Nah, fuck it. Once around the block. Slip into third and we're rumbling at 40 kilometres an hour. And we're free. It's a breakout. Me and Houdini, on the run. Two great escapologists, on the lam. I'm driving! I scream. Slim laughs and his old chest wheezes. Left into Swanevelda Street, on past the old World War II Polish migrant centre where Lyle's mum and dad spent their first days in Australia. Left into Butcher Street, where the Freemans keep their collection of exotic birds. A squawking peacock, a grey-lag goose, a Muscovy duck. Fly free, bird. Drive, drive. Left into Hardy, left back into Sandakan. Slow her down, says Slim. I slam the brakes and lose footing on the clutch, and the car cuts out, once again parallel to August, who is still writing words on thin air, lost in the work. Did you see me, Gus? I holler. Did you see me driving, Gus? He doesn't look away from his words. Boy didn't even see us drive away. What's he scribbling now? Slim asks. The same two words over and over again. The crescent moon of a capital C, chubby little A, skinny little I, one descending stroke in the air with a cherry on top. August sits in the same spot on the fence that he usually sits on, by the missing brick, the space 2 bricks along the fence from the red wrought iron letterbox. August is the missing brick. The moon pool is my brother. August is the moon pool. 2 words, I say. A name starting with C. I will associate her name with the day I learned to drive and, forevermore, the missing brick and the moon pool and Slim's Toyota Land Cruiser and the crack in Slim's windscreen and my lucky freckle and everything about my brother August will remind me of her. What name? Slim asks. Caitlin. Caitlin. There's no doubt about it. Caitlin. That right forefinger and an endless blue sky sheet of paper with that name on it. You know anyone named Caitlin? Asks Slim. No. What's the second word? I follow August's finger swirling through the sky. It's spies, I say. Caitlin spies, Slim says. Caitlin spies. He drags on his cigarette contemplatively. What the fuck does that mean? Caitlin spies. No doubt about it. Your end is a dead blue wren. Boy swallows universe. Caitlin spies. No doubt about it. These are the answers to the questions. Boy makes rainbow. This room of true love, this room of blood, sky blue fibro walls, off-colour paint patches where Lyle has puttied up holes, a made-up queen bed, tightly tucked white sheet, an old thin grey blanket that wouldn't have been out of place in one of those death camps Lyle's mum and dad were escaping from. Everybody running from something, especially ideas. A framed Jesus portrait over the bed, the sun and his jagged crown, reasonably calm for all the blood dripping down his forehead, so cool under pressure, that guy, but frowning like always because August and I aren't supposed to be in here. This still blue room, the quietest place on earth. This room of true companionship. Slim says the mistake of all those old English writers and all those matinee movies is to suggest true love comes easy, that it waits on stars and planets and revolutions around the sun. Waits on fate. Dormant true love, there for everybody, just waiting to be found. Erupting when the thread of existence collides with chance and the eyes of two lovers meet. Boom. From what I've seen of it, true love is hard. Real romance has death in it. It has midnight shakes and flecks of shit across a bedsheet. True love, like this, dies if it has to wait for fate. True love like this asks lovers to cast aside what is meant to be and work with what is. August leads. Boy wants to show me something. He'll kill us if he finds us in here. Lena's room is out of bounds. Lena's room is sacred. Only Lyle enters Lena's room. August shrugs. He grips a flashlight in his right hand, passes Lena's bed. This bed makes me sad. August nods knowingly. It makes me sadder, Eli. Everything makes me sadder. My emotions run deeper than yours, Eli. Don't forget it. The bed sags on one side, weighed down on one half for the 8 years that Lena Orlick slept alone on it without the balancing weight of her husband, O'Reilly Orlick, who died of prostate cancer on this bed in 1968. O'Reilly died quiet. Died as quiet as this room. Reckon Lena's watching us right now? August smiles, shrugs his shoulders. Lena believed in God, but she didn't believe in love, or at least the kind written in stars. Lena didn't believe in fate because if her love of O'Reilly was meant to be, then the birth and the whole unholy and deranged headfuck adulthood of Adolf Hitler was also meant to be. Because that monster, that filthy potvore, was the only reason they met in 1945 in an American-run displaced persons holding camp in Germany, where they stayed for 4 years, long enough for O'Reilly to collect the silver that formed Lena's wedding ring. Lyle was born in the camp in 1949, spent his first night on Earth sleeping in a large iron wash bucket, wrapped in a grey blanket, like the one right here on this bed. America wouldn't take Lyle, and Great Britain wouldn't take Lyle, but Australia would, and Lyle never forgot this fact, which is why, during a wildly misspent youth, he never burned or vandalised property marked Made in Australia. In 1951, the Orlicks arrived at the Wacol East Dependence Holding Camp for Displaced Persons, a 60-second bike ride from our house. For 4 years they lived among 2,000 people, sharing timber huts with a total of 340 rooms, with communal toilets and baths. O'Ralley landed a job pegging sleepers for the new rail line between Darra and neighbouring suburbs Oxley and Corinda. Lena worked in a timber factory in Yeerongpilly, in the southwest, cutting sheets of plywood alongside men twice her size and with half her pluck. O'Ralley built this room himself, built the whole house on weekends with Polish friends from the railway line. No electricity for the first 2 years. Lena and O'Ralley taught themselves English by kerosene lamplight. The house spread, room by nailed room, short stump by short stump, until the smell of Lena's Polish wild mushroom soup and potato and cheese pierogi and cabbage galopki and roasted lamb baranina filled 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, a lounge room, a laundry off the kitchen, a bathroom, and a standalone flushable toilet beneath a wall hanging of Warsaw's white 3-nave Church of the Holiest Saviour. August stops, turns to the room's built-in wardrobe. Lyle built this wardrobe himself, using all those woodcraft skills he learned watching his dad and his dad's Polish friends piece this house together. "What is it, Gus?" August nods his head right. "You should open the wardrobe door." O'Ralley Orlick lived a quiet life and was determined to die quietly too, with dignity, not to the sound of heart monitors and rushing medical staff. He wouldn't make a scene. Every time Lena returned to his death room with an empty piss pot or a fresh towel to wipe her husband's vomit from his chest, O'Ralley would apologise for causing such trouble. His last word to Lena was, "Sorry." And he didn't stick around long enough to clarify what exactly he was sorry for. And Lena could only be sure he did not mean their love, because she knew there was hardship in this true love, and endurance, and reward, and failure, and renewal, and, finally, death. But never regret. I opened the wardrobe. An old ironing board standing up. A bag of Lena's old clothes on the wardrobe floor. A hanging row of Lena's dresses in single colours, olive, tan, black, blue. Lena died loud. A violent cacophony of crashing steel and a Frankie Valley high note, returning from Toowoomba's Carnival of Flowers along the Warrego Highway at twilight, 80 minutes out of Brisbane. Her Ford Cortina meeting the front steel grille of a semi-trailer hauling pineapples. Lyle was down south in a King's Cross drug rehab with his old girlfriend Astrid, on the second of 3 attempts to kick a decade-long heroin habit. He was jonesing all the way through a subsequent meeting with police officers from the highway town of Gatton, who attended the scene. "She wouldn't have suffered," said the senior officer, which Lyle took as the officer's tender way of saying, "The truck was fucking huge." The officer handed over the only possessions of Lena's they were able to prize from the Cortina's wreckage. Lena's handbag, a set of rosary beads, a small round pillow that she sat on to see better above the steering wheel, and, miraculously, a cassette tape recording ejected from the car's modest stereo system, Looking Back by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. "Fuck," Lyle said, holding the tape, shaking his head. "What?" said the officer. "Nothing," Lyle said, realising an explanation would delay the smack fix that was dominating his thoughts, the physical need for drugs and their beautiful daydream, for what I heard Mum once call the siesta, creating an emotional levee that would break a week later, flooding him with the notion that there was no longer a single person left on earth who loved him. That night, on a small sofa bed in the Darra basement of his childhood best friend, Tadeusz Teddy Callis, he shot his left arm up to the thought of how romantic his mum was, how deeply she loved her husband, and how the soaring high notes of Frankie Valli made every human on earth smile except his mother. Frankie Valli made Lena Orlick weep. In a heroin haze, Lyle placed the Four Seasons cassette into Teddy's basement's tape deck. He pressed play because he wanted to hear the song that was playing when she smashed into the semi-trailer full of pineapples. It was Big Girls Don't Cry. And in that moment, Lyle remembered, as sure as Frankie Valli's first high note, that accidents never happen to Lena Orlick. True love comes hard. What is it, Gus? He puts a forefinger to his lips. He silently shifts aside the bag of Lena's clothes, slides Lena's dresses across the wardrobe's hanging pole. He pushes against the rear wall of the wardrobe space, and a sheet of white painted timber, 1 metre by 1 metre, clicks against a compression mechanism behind the wall and falls forward into August's hands. What are you doing, Gus? He slides the timber sheet along the back of Lena's hanging dresses. A black void opens behind the wardrobe, a chasm, a space of unknown distance beyond the wall. August's eyes are wide, elated by the hope and possibility in the void. What is that? We met Lyle through Astrid, and Mum met Astrid in the Sisters of Mercy Women's Refuge in Nundah on Brisbane's north side. We were all dipping bread rolls into beef stew, Mum, August and me, in the refuge dining room. Mum says Astrid was at the end of our table. I was 5 years old, August was 6, and kept pointing at a purple crystal tattooed beneath Astrid's left eye, shaped so it looked like she was crying crystals. Astrid was Moroccan and beautiful and permanently young and always so bejewelled and mystical that I'd come to think of her and her exposed coffee-coloured belly as a character from Arabian Nights, a keeper of magical lamps and daggers and flying carpets and hidden meanings. At the refuge dining table, Astrid turned and stared into August's eyes, and August stared back, smiling for long enough that it inspired Astrid to turn to Mum. "You must feel special," she said. "For what?" Mum asked. "Spirit chose you to watch over him," she said, nodding at August. Spirit, we would later discover, was an all-encompassing term for the creator of all living things who visited Astrid on occasion in 3 manifestations: a mystical white-robed goddess spirit, Shana, an Egyptian pharaoh named Om-Ra, and Errol, a farting, foul-mouthed representation of all the universe's ills who spoke like a small drunk Irishman. Lucky for us, Spirit liked August, and Spirit soon made some miraculous communication with Astrid about how her path to enlightenment included arrangements to have us stay for 3 months in the sunroom of her grandmother Zora's house in Manly, in Brisbane's eastern suburbs. I was only 5 years old, but I still called bullshit. But Manly's a place where a boy can run barefoot across the low-tide mudflats of Moreton Bay for so long he can convince himself he's running all the way to the edge of Atlantis, where he might live forever, or until the smell of crumbed cod and chips calls him home. So I made like August and shut my trap. Lyle came to Zora's house to see Astrid. He soon came to Zora's house to play Scrabble with Mum. Lyle's not book smart, but he's street smart, and he reads paperback novels endlessly, so he knows plenty of words, like Mum. Lyle says he fell in love with Mum the moment she landed the word quixotic on a triple word score. Mum's love came hard. There was pain in it. There was blood and screams and fists against fibro walls, because the worst thing Lyle ever did was get my mum on drugs. I guess the best thing Lyle ever did was get her off drugs, but he knows I know that the latter could never make up for the former. He got her off drugs in this room of true love, this room of blood. August turns on the flashlight, shines it into the black void beyond the wardrobe wall. The dead white light illuminates a small room almost as big as our bathroom. The torchlight shines on 3 brown brick walls, a cavity deep enough for a grown man to stand in, like some kind of fallout shelter, but unstocked and empty. The floor is made of the earth that the room was dug out from. Augusta's torch shines on the empty space until it finds the only objects in the room: a wood stool with a cushioned circular seat, and upon this stool is a push-button box telephone. The telephone is red. The worst kind of junkie is the one who thinks they're not the worst kind of junkie. Mum and Lyle were woeful for a while there about 4 years ago. Not in the way they looked, just the way they behaved. Not forgetting my 8th birthday as such, just sleeping through it, that kind of thing. Booby-trap syringes and shit. You'd creep into their bedroom to wake them up and tell them it was Easter, hop onto their bed like the joyful seasonal bunny and cop a junk needle in your kneecap. August made me pancakes on my 8th birthday, served them up with maple syrup and a birthday candle that was actually just a thick white house candle. When we finished the pancakes, August made a gesture that said because it was my birthday, we could do whatever I wanted. I asked if we could burn several things with my birthday candle, starting with the fungus-green loaf of bread that had been sitting in the fridge for what August and I had tracked at 43 days. August was everything back then. Mum, Dad, Uncle, Grandma, priest, pastor, cook. He made us breakfast. He ironed our school uniforms. He brushed my hair, helped me with my homework. He started cleaning up after Lyle and Mum as they slept, hiding their drug bags and spoons, responsibly disposing of their syringes, with me always behind him saying, "Fuck all that, let's go kick the footy." But August cared for Mum like she was a lost forest fawn, learning to walk, because August seemed to know some secret about it all, that it was all just a phase, a part of Mum's story that we simply had to wait through. I think August believed she needed this phase. She deserved this drug rest, this big sleep, this time out of her brain, this time out from thinking about the past. Her 30-year slideshow of violence and abandonment and dormitory homes for wayward Sydney girls with bad dads. August combed her hair while she slept, pulled blankets over her chest, wiped drool from her mouth with tissues. August was her guardian, and he'd clean me up in a flurry of pushes and punches if I ever stood in judgment and disgust. Because I didn't know, because nobody knew Mum but August. These were Mum's Debbie Harry heart of glass years. People say junk makes you look horrific, that too much heroin tears your hair out, leaves scabs all over your face and your wrists from your anxious fingers and your anxious fingernails that keep filling with blood and rolled skin. People say the gear sucks the calcium out of your teeth and your bones, leaves you couch-bound like a rotting corpse. And I'd seen all that. But I also thought junk made Mum look beautiful. She was thin and pale white and blonde. Not as blonde as Debbie Harry, but just as pretty. I thought junk made Mum look like an angel. She had this fixed, dazed look on her face. There but not there. Like Harry in that Heart of Glass clip. Like something from a dream. Moving in the space between sleeping and waking. Between life and death. But sparkling somehow. Like she had a mirror ball permanently spinning in the pupils of her sapphire eyes. And I remember thinking, that's how an angel really would look if they found themselves in suburban Darra, southeast Queensland, down all this way from heaven. Such an angel really would be dazed like that, puzzled, glassy, flapping her wings as she studied all those dishes piling up in the sink, all those cars passing by the house beyond the cracks in the curtains. There's a golden orb weaver spider that builds a web outside my bedroom window, so intricate and perfect that it looks like a single snowflake magnified 1,000 times. The orb weaver spider sits in the middle of the web like it's parachuting sideways, suspended in the quest it keeps wanting to finish without needing to know the reason why. Blown but not beaten by wind and rain and afternoon summer storms so strong they fell power poles. Mum was the orb weaver spider in those years, and she was the web, and she was the butterfly too, the blue tiger butterfly with sapphire wings being eaten alive by the spider. "We need to get out of here, Gus." August hands me the flashlight to hold. He turns around and kneels down, sliding his legs backwards through the space in the wardrobe and into the void of the room. He drops into the room and his feet find footing. He turns back around to me and, standing on his toes for extra height, he nods at the sliding wardrobe door. I close it behind us and we're in total darkness, but for the light from the torch. August nods me into the void, reaches up to take the flashlight from my hands. I shake my head. "This is insane." He nods me in again. "You're an asshole." He smiles. August knows I'm just like him. August knows that if someone told me there was a hungry Bengal tiger on the loose behind a door, I'd open it to be sure they weren't lying. I slip down into the room and my bare feet land on the cold, damp earth of the room's floor. I run a hand along the walls, rough brick and dirt. "What is this place?" August stands staring at the red telephone. "What are you looking at?" He keeps staring at the telephone, excited and distant. "Gus! Gus!" He raises his left forefinger. "Wait a second." And the telephone rings, a rapid ring that fills the room. "Ring, ring! Ring, ring!" August turns to me. His eyes are wide and electric blue. "Don't answer it, Gus." He lets it ring 3 more times, and then his hand reaches for the receiver. "Gus, don't pick up that fucking phone." He picks it up. Phone to his ear. He's already smiling, seemingly amused by someone on the other end of the line. "Can you hear something?" August smiles. "What is it? Give me a listen." I grab for the phone, but August pushes my arm away. His left ear squeezing the phone to his left shoulder. He's laughing now. "Is someone talking to you?" He nods. "You need to put the phone down, Gus." He turns away from me, listening intently. The phone's twisting red cord wrapping over his shoulder. He stands with his back turned to me for a full minute. Then he turns back around with a vacant look across his face. He points to me. "They want to speak to you, Eli?" "No." He nods his head and passes the phone to me. "I don't want it now," I say, pushing the phone away. August snarls, eyebrows raised. "Don't be such a child, Eli." Then he throws the phone at me. Instinctively, I catch it. Deep breath. "Hello?" The voice of a man. "Hello." A real man-type man. Deep voice. A man in his 50s maybe. 60s even. "Who is this?" I ask. "Who do you think it is?" the man replies. "I don't know." "Of course you do." No, I really don't." "Yes, you do. You have always known." August smiles, nodding his head. "I think I know who it is. You're Titus Brosh." "No, I'm not Titus Brosh." "You're a friend of Lyle's." "Yes." "You're the man who gave Lyle the golden triangle heroin I found in the moa catcher." "How do you know it was golden triangle heroin?" "My friend Slim reads the Courier Mail every day. When he's finished with the paper, he passes it to me. The crime desk have been writing stories about heroin spreading through Brisbane from Darra. They say it comes from the main opium-producing area of Southeast Asia that overlaps Burma, Laos and Thailand. That's the Golden Triangle. You know your stuff, kid. You read a lot? I read everything. Slim says reading is the greatest escape there is, and he's made some great escapes. Slim's a very wise man. You know Slim? Everybody knows the Houdini of Boggo Road. He's my best friend. You're best friends with a convicted killer. Lyle says Slim didn't kill that cab driver. Is that right? Yes, that's right. He says Slim was verbaled. They stitched him up for it because he had history. They do that, you know, the cops. Has Slim told you himself that he didn't do it? Not really, but Lyle says there's no way in hell he did it. And do you believe Lyle? Lyle doesn't lie. Everybody lies, kid. Not Lyle. He's physically incapable of it. That's what he told Mum, anyway. You don't really believe that, do you? He called it a full-blown medical condition. Disinhibited social engagement disorder. It means he can't mask the truth. He can't lie. I don't think that means he can't lie. I think it means he can't be discreet. Same thing. Maybe, kid. I'm sick of adults being discreet. Nobody ever gives you the full story. Eli? How do you know my name? Who are you? Eli? Yes? You sure you want the full story? There's the sound of the wardrobe door sliding open. Then August sucks in a deep mouthful of air, and I feel Lyle looking through the wardrobe space well before I hear him. What the fuck are you two doing in there? He barks. August drops to the ground, and in the dark, I can only see flashes of his torchlight frantically making lightning bolt shapes on the walls of this small, dank, underground earth room as his hands feel desperately for something, and he finds it. Don't you fucking dare! Lyle hollers through clenched teeth. But August does fucking dare. He finds a square brown metal door flap at the base of the right wall, the size of the cardboard base in a large banana box. A bronze latch keeps the flap fixed to a strip of wood in the floor. August loosens the latch, flips the door up and, slipping quickly onto his belly, uses his elbows to crawl through a tunnel running off the room. I turn to Lyle, stunned. What is this place? But I don't wait for an answer. I drop the phone. Eli? Screams Lyle. I dive to my belly and follow August through the tunnel. Soil on my stomach, damp earth and hard dirt walls against my shoulders, and darkness, save for the shaky torch bouncing white light from August's hand. I have a friend at school, Duc Quang, who visited his grandparents in Vietnam, and when he was there, his family visited a tunnel network built by the Viet Cong. He told me how scary it was crawling through those tunnels, the suffocating claustrophobia, the dirt that falls on your face and into your eyes. That's what this is, goddammit, full North Vietnamese army madness. Duc Quang said he had to stop halfway through a tunnel, frozen stiff with fear, and two tourists who were crawling behind him had to drag him out of the tunnel backwards. There's no going back for me. Back in that room is Lyle and, more significantly, Lyle's open right palm, which I have no doubt whatsoever he is priming with a series of finger flexes and muscle clenches in readiness to smack the bounce out of my poor white ass. Fear stopped Duc in his tunnelling tracks, but fear of Lyle keeps me elbow-crawling like a seasoned VC explosives expert, 6, 7, 8 metres into darkness. The tunnel takes a slight left turn. 9 metres, 10 metres, 11 metres. It's hot in here. Effort and sweat and dirt mix into mud on my forehead. The air is thick. Fuck, August! I can't breathe in here! And August stops. His torchlight shines on another brown metal flap. He flips it open, and a foul sulphur stench fills the tunnel and makes me gag. What is that smell? Is that shit? I think that's shit, August. August crawls through the tunnel's exit, and I follow him hard and fast, taking a deep breath when I spill into another square space, smaller than the last, but just big enough for the two of us to stand up in. The space is dark. The flooring is earth again, but there's something layering the earth and cushioning my feet. Sawdust. That smell is stronger now. That's definitely shit, August. Where the fuck are we? August looks up, and my eyes follow his to a perfect circle of light directly above us, the radius of a dinner plate. Then the circle of light is filled with the face of Lyle looking down at us. Red hair, freckles. Lyle is Ginger Meggs grown up, always in a Jackie Howe cotton singlet and rubber flip-flops. His wiry but muscular arms covered in cheap and ill-conceived tattoos. An eagle with a baby in its talons on his right shoulder. An ageing, staff-wielding wizard on his left shoulder who looks like my Year 7 teacher at school, Mr. Humphreys. Pre-Hawaii Elvis Presley shaking his knees on his left forearm. Mum has a colour picture book about the Beatles, and I've always thought that Lyle looks a bit like John Lennon in the wide-eyed Please Please Me years. I will remember Lyle through Twist and Shout. Lyle is Love Me Do. Lyle is Do You Want to Know a Secret? You two are in so much shit, Lyle says through the circular hole above us. Why? I say defiantly, my confusion turning to anger. No, I mean you're actually standing in shit, he says. You just crawled inside the thunderbox. Fuck. The thunderbox. The abandoned, rusty tin outhouse at the end of Lena's backyard, cobwebbed home to redback spiders and brown snakes, so hungry they even bite your ass in your dreams. Perspective's a funny thing. The world seems so different looking up at it from 6 feet under. Life from the bottom of a shithole. The only way is up from here for August and Eli Bell. Lyle removes the thick sheet of wood with the hole in it that stretches across the thunderbox and acts as the toilet seat that once cushioned the plump backsides of Lena and Aurelie and every one of Aurelie's workmates who helped build the house we just miraculously crawled away from through a secret underground tunnel. Lyle reaches his right arm down into the void, hand extended for grabbing. Come on, he says. I move back from his hand. No, you're going to give us a flogging, I say. Well, I can't lie, he says. Fuck this. Don't fucking swear, Eli, Lyle says. I'm not going anywhere until you give us some answers, I bark. Don't test me, Eli. You and Mum are using again. Got him. He drops his head, shakes it. He's tender now, compassionate and regretful. We're not using, mate, he says. I promised you both. I don't break my promises. Who was the guy on the red phone? I shout. What guy? Lyle asks. What the hell are you talking about, Eli? The phone rang and August picked it up. Eli. The man, I say, deep voice. He's your drug boss, isn't he? He's the man who gave you the bag of heroin I found in the mower catcher. Eli. He's the big bad mastermind, the puppet master behind it all. The kingpin who sounds all sweet and nice and boring like a high school science teacher, but is actually a murderous megalomaniac. Eli, damn it! He screams. I stop. Lyle shakes his head. He takes a breath. That phone doesn't get calls, he says. Your imagination's getting the better of you again, Eli. I turn to August. I turn back up to Lyle. It rang, Lyle. August picked it up. A man was on the other end. He knew my name. He knew us all. He knew Slim. I thought for a minute it was you, but then—"
"That's enough, Eli," Lyle barks. "Whose idea was it to go into Lena's room?"
August puts a thumb to his chest. Lyle nods his head.
"All right, here's the deal," he says. "Come up now and get what's coming to you, and after everyone's settled down a bit, I'll update you on a few things we got going on."
"Fuck that," I say. "I want answers now." Lyle replaces the wood toilet seat back on the thunderbox.
"Let me know when you find your manners again, Eli," he says.
Lyle walks away. 4 years ago, I thought he was going to walk away forever. He stood at the front door with a duffel bag over his right shoulder. I clutched his left hand and leaned back on it with all my weight, and he dragged me with him out the door.
"No," I said. "No, Lyle."
Tears in my eyes and tears in my nose and mouth.
"I got to get myself better, mate," he said. "August is going to look after your mum for me, and you got to look after August, all right?"
"No," I howled, and he turned his head, and I thought I had him because he never cries, but his eyes were wet.
"No!"
Then he shouted at me,
"Let me go, Eli!"
And he pushed me back through the door, and I fell to the linoleum floor of the front sunroom, friction taking skin from my elbows.
"I love you," he said. "I'll be back."
"You're lying," I shouted.
"I can't lie, Eli."
Then he walked out the front door and out along the path to the front gate and out further past the wrought iron letterbox and the brown brick fence with the single missing brick. I followed him all the way out to the gate, and I was screaming so loud it hurt my throat.
"You're a liar!" I screamed. "You're a liar! You're a liar! You're a liar!"
But he didn't even turn around. He just kept walking away. But then he came back. 6 months later. It was January and it was hot, and I was in the front yard, shirtless and tanned, with my thumb on the garden hose directing arcing sheets of vapour spray to the sun to make my own rainbows, and I saw him walking through the wall of water. He opened the front gate and closed it behind him, and I dropped the hose and ran to him. He had navy blue work pants on and a navy blue denim work shirt covered in grease. He was fit and strong, and when he kneeled on the pathway to meet my height, I thought he kneeled like King Arthur, and I had never loved another man more in my short life. So rainbows are Lyle, and Greece is Lyle, and King Arthur is Lyle. I ran to him so hard he nearly fell backwards with my impact, because I hit him like Ray Price, steel hard lock forward for the triumphant Parramatta Eels. He laughed, and when my fingers clutched at his shoulders to draw him closer, he dropped his head on my hair and kissed the top of my head, and I don't know why I said what I said next, but I said it all the same. "Dad," I said. He gave me a half smile, and he straightened me up with his hands on both my shoulders, stared into my eyes. "You've already got a dad, mate," he said, "but you got me too." 5 days later, Mum was locked in Lena's room, punching the thin fibro walls with her fists. Lyle had nailed wooden boards across the room's 2 sets of windows. He'd dragged out Lena's old bed and taken the Jesus picture off the wall, removed Lena's old vases and framed photographs of distant relatives and close friends from the Darra Lawn Bowls Club. The room was bare, but for a thin mattress with no sheets or blankets or pillows. For 7 days, Lyle kept Mum locked in that sky-blue room. Lyle, August and I would stand outside her locked door, listening to her screams, long and random banshee howls, as if beyond that locked door was a grand inquisitor overseeing some wicked variety of torture involving pulley systems and Mum's outstretched limbs. But I knew for certain there was no one else in that room but her. She howled at lunch. She wailed at midnight. Jean Crimmins, our next-door neighbour on the right side, a retired and likeable postman with 1,000 tales of misdirected mail and suburban curbside happenstance, came over to check on things. "She's almost there, mate," was all Lyle said at the front door, and Jean simply nodded like he knew exactly what Lyle was talking about, like he knew how to be discreet. On the 5th day, Mum singled me out because she knew I was the weakest. "Eli!" she cried through the door. "He's trying to kill me. You need to call the police. Call them, Eli. He wants to kill me." I ran to our phone and I dialed 3 zeros on the long rotary dial until August gently put his finger down on the receiver. He shook his head. "No, Eli." I wept, and August put a gentle arm around my neck, and we walked back down the hallway and stood staring at the door. I wept some more. Then I walked to the lounge room, and I slid open the sliding bottom doors of the wood veneer wall unit that held Mum's vinyl records, Between the Buttons by the Rolling Stones, the one she played so much, the one with the cover where they're standing in their winter coats and Keith Richards is all blurred like he's stepped halfway into a time portal that will take him to his future. "Hey Eli, go to Ruby Tuesday," Mum always said. "Which one's that?" "Side 1, 3rd thick line from the edge," Mum always said. I unplugged the record player and I dragged it down the hall, plugged it in close to Lena's door, dropped the needle down, 3rd thick line from the edge. That song about a girl who never said where she came from. The song echoed through the house and Mum's sobbing echoed through the door. The song finished. "Play it again, Eli," Mum said. This is the end of CD 1. The book continues on CD 2. CD 2. On the 7th day, at sunset, Lyle unlocked the door. After 2 or 3 minutes, Lena's bedroom door creaked open. Mum was thin and gaunt, and waddling slowly like her bones were tied together with string. She tried to say something, but her lips and mouth and throat were so dry, and her body was so spent that she couldn't get the words out. "Grr," she said. She licked her lips and tried again. "Grr," she said. She closed her eyes, like she was faint. August and I watched and waited for some sign she was back, some sign that she was awake from the big sleep. And I guess that sign was the way she fell into Lyle's arm and collapsed onto the floor, clinging to the man who might have saved her life, and waving in the boys who believed he could do it. We huddled around her, and she was like a fallen bird. And in the cave of our bodies, she chirped 2 words. "Group hug," she whispered. And we hugged her so tight we might have all formed into rock if we'd stuck around long enough. Formed into diamond. Then she staggered, clinging to Lyle, to their bedroom. Lyle closed the bedroom door behind them. Silence. August and I immediately stepped softly into Lena's room, like we were treading lightly into a minefield in one of those North Vietnamese jungles of Duc Quong's grandparents' homeland. There were scattered paper plates and food scraps across the floor amid clumps of hair. There was a bedpan in the corner of the room. The room's sky-blue walls were covered in small holes the size of Mum's fists, and emanating from these holes were streaks of blood that looked like tattered red flags blowing in battlefield winds. A long brown streak of dried-up shit wound like a dirt road to nowhere along two walls. And whatever the battle was that Mum had been waging in that small bedroom, we knew she had just won it. My mum's name is Frances Bell. August and I stand in silence in the hole. A full minute passes. August pushes me hard in the chest in frustration. "Sorry," I say. Another 2 minutes pass in silence. "Thanks for taking the hit on whose idea it was." August shrugs. Another 2 minutes pass, and the smell and the heat in this shithole grip my neck and my nose and my knowing. We stare up to the circle of light, up through Lena and Aurelie Orlick's backyard wooden arse void. "Do you think he's coming back?" Boy follows footsteps. Wake up. Darkness. Moonlight through the bedroom window bouncing off August's face. He's sitting by my lower bunk bed, rubbing sweat from my forehead. "Did I wake you again?" I ask. He gives a half smile, nodding. "You did, but that's all right." "Same dream again?" August nods. "Thought so." "The magic car." The magic car dream, where August and I are sitting in the back tan vinyl seat of a Holden Kingswood car, the same colour as Lena's sky blue bedroom walls. We're playing corners, leaning hard against each other, laughing so hard we might piss our pants, as the man driving the car makes sharp lefts and rights around bends. I wind the window down on my side, and a cyclonic wind blows me along the car seat, pinning August to his side door. I push with all my strength against the wind funneling through the window, and I lean my head out to discover we're flying through the sky, and the driver of this mystery vehicle is ducking and weaving through clouds. I wind the window back up, and it turns grey outside. Everywhere grey. "Just a rain cloud," August says, because he talks in this dream. Then it's grey and green outside the car window. Everything grey and green outside, and wet. Then a school of brim swim past my window, and the car passes a forest of waving seaweed ferns. We're not driving through a rain cloud. We're driving to the bottom of an ocean. The driver turns around, and that driver is my father. "Close your eyes," he says. My dad's name is Robert Bell. "I'm starving." August nods. Lyle didn't give us a flogging for finding his secret room. I wish he had. The silence is worse. The looks of disappointment. I'd take 10 open palm smacks across my arse over this feeling that I'm getting older, that I'm getting too old for smacks across my arse, and too old for creeping into secret rooms I was never supposed to know about. Too old for squawking about finding dope bags in mower catchers. Lyle hauled us out of the thunderbox this afternoon in silence. He didn't have to tell us where to go. We went to our bedroom out of common sense. Rage was coming off Lyle like a bad cologne. Our room was the safest place to be, our cramped sanctuary, decorated by a single long-faded McDonald's promotional poster showing team photos from the 1982-83 Benson and Hedges World Series Cup one-day cricket competition between Australia, England and New Zealand, with a special Cock and Balls Inc. tribute August has added to the forehead of David Gower in the front row for the Poms. We didn't get dinner. We didn't get a single word, so we just went to bed. Fuck this, I'm getting something to eat, I say a couple of hours later. I tiptoe down the hall in darkness into the kitchen, open the fridge. A corridor of light filling the kitchen. There's an old wad of plastic-wrapped deli luncheon meat, a tub of Eater 5-star margarine. I close the fridge door and turn left towards the pantry and bump into August, already laying 4 slices of bread on a cutting board on the bench. Luncheon meat sandwiches with tomato sauce. August takes his to the front window of the living room so he can stare up at the moon. He reaches the window and immediately hunches down in a panicked effort to stay out of sight. "What is it?" I ask. He waves his right hand downwards. I duck down and join him beneath the window. He nods his head upwards, raises his eyebrows. "Have a look, slowly." I raise my head to the bottom of the window and peek out to the street. It's past midnight, and Lyle is out on the curbside, resting on the brick fence by the letterbox, smoking a Winfield Red. "What's he doing?" August shrugs, peeks out alongside me, puzzled. Lyle wears his thick roo-shooting coat, the thick woolly collar up, breaking the midnight chill against his neck. He blows cigarette smoke that floats against the dark like a grey ghost. We both drop down again, chomp into our sandwiches. August drips tomato sauce onto the carpet beneath the window. "Sauce, Gus?" I say. We're not allowed to eat food on this carpet now that Lyle and Mum are all drug-free and house-proud. August wipes the drops of sauce up from the carpet with his thumb and forefinger, licking the recovered red sauce from his fingers. He spits on the red stain left on the carpet and rubs it in. Not enough for Mum not to notice. Then a loud popping sound echoes across our suburb. August and I immediately hop up, eyes peeking out through the window. In the night sky, about a block away, a purple firework whizzes into the darkness above the suburban houses, rising and fizzing with a corkscrew velocity before reaching its peak elevation and exploding into 10 or so smaller firework strands that umbrella pop into a briefly luminous and vivid purple sky fountain. Lyle watches the firework flare out, then he takes one more long drag of the Winfield and drops it at his feet, stubbing it out beneath his right boot. He puts his hands into his pockets of his roo-shooting coat and starts walking up the street in the direction of the firework. "Come on, let's go," I whisper. I stuff the rest of my luncheon meat and tomato sauce sandwich into my mouth, so it must look like I'm eating 2 large marbles. August stays beneath the window, eating his sandwich. "Come on, Gus, let's go," I whisper. He still sits there, processing like always, running the angles like always, weighing the options like always. He shakes his head. "Come on, don't you want to know where he's going?" August gives a half smile. The right forefinger that he just used to wipe up tomato sauce slashes through the air, scribbling the invisible lines of 2 words. Already know. I've been following people for years. The key elements to a successful follow are distance and belief. Distance enough from the subject to remain undetected, belief enough to convince yourself you're not actually following the subject, even though you are. Belief means invisibility, just another invisible stranger in a world of invisible strangers. Cold out here. I give Lyle a good 50-metre start. I'm just past the letterbox when I realise I'm barefoot in my winter pyjamas, the ones with the large hole over my right arse cheek. Lyle marches on, hands in his coat, drifting into the darkness beyond the streetlights that line the entrance to the Ducey Street Park across the road from our house. Lyle turns into a shadow, crossing the cricket pitch at the centre of the black oval, climbing up a hill that leads to a kid's playground and the council barbecue that we had a sausage sizzle on for August's 13th birthday last March. I'm creeping softly across the oval grass like a phantom, walking on air, ninja quiet, ninja quick. Snap. A thin, dry stick breaks beneath my bare right foot. Lyle stops beneath a streetlight at the other side of the park. He turns and looks back into the park darkness engulfing me. He's staring right at me, but he can't see me because I have distance and I have belief. I believe I am invisible, and Lyle does too. He turns from the park and walks on, head down, along Stratheden Street. I wait until he turns right into Harrington Street before I sprint out of the park darkness and into the exposed streetlights of Stratheden. A sprawling mango tree on the corner of Stratheden and Harrington provides the visual protection I need to watch Lyle, clear as day, take a left into Arcadia Street and into the driveway of Darren Dang's house. Darren Dang is in my grade at school. There's only 18 of us Year 7 students at Darra State School, and we all agree that handsome Vietnamese Australian Darren Dang is by far the most likely of us to become famous, probably for killing all 18 of us in a classroom machine gun massacre. Last month, while we were working on projects about the First Fleet, making British ships out of paddle pop sticks, Darren passed by my desk. "Hey, Tink," he whispered. Eli Bell, Tinkerbell, Tink. "Hey, Tink, bottle bins, lunchtime." That translated to, "You best come by the large yellow metal bottle recycling bins behind groundsman Mr. McKinnon's tool shed at lunchtime if you are at all interested in continuing your modest Queensland State School education with both of your ears." I waited for 30 minutes by the bottle bins and was thinking, with false hope, that Darren Dang might not make our impromptu rendezvous when he crept up behind me and gripped the back of my neck between his right forefinger and thumb. "If you saw ninjas, you're seeing ghosts," he whispered. It's a line from The Octagon. 2 months earlier, during a physical education class, I told Darren Dang that I, like him, believed the Chuck Norris movie about a secret training camp for terrorist ninjas was the best movie ever made. I had lied. Tron is the best movie ever made. "Ha!" laughed Eric Voigt, Darren's roly-poly, empty-headed muscle from a family of roly-poly, empty-headed mechanics who run the Darra auto transmission and window tinting shop across the road from the Darra Brickworks. "Tinkerbell the fairy just shit his little fairy pants." "Shat," I said. "Tinkerbell the fairy just shat his pants, Eric." Darren turned to the bottle bins and dug his hands into a collection of Mr. McKinnon's empty spirits bottles. "How much does this guy drink?" he said, clutching a Black Douglas bottle and sucking down half a capful of liquor resting at the bottom. He did the same with a small bottle of Jack Daniels, then a bottle of Jim Beam bourbon. "You good?" he said, offering me the dregs of a Stone's green ginger wine. "I'm good," I said. "Why did you want to meet me?" Darren smiled and slung a large canvas duffel bag off his right shoulder. He reached into the duffel bag. "Close your eyes," Darren said. Such requests from Darren Dang always end in tears or blood. But, like school, once you start with Darren Dang, there's no realistic way of avoiding Darren Dang. "Why?" I asked. Eric pushed me hard in the chest. "Just close your eyes, bell end." I closed my eyes and instinctively cupped my hands over my balls. "Open your eyes," Darren said. And I opened my eyes to see a close-up view of a large brown rat, its 2 front teeth nervously buzzing up and down like a council jackhammer. "Fucking hell, Darren!" I barked. Darren and Eric howled with laughter. Found him in the storeroom, he said. Darren Dang's mum, Backoff Bick Dang, and his stepdad, Quan Nguyen, run the Little Saigon Big Fresh supermarket at the end of Darra Station Road, a one-stop super shop for Vietnamese imported vegetables, fruits, spices, meats, and whole fresh fish. The storeroom at the rear of the supermarket, next to the meat locker, is, much to Darren's joy, home to southeast Queensland's longest and most well-fed dynasty of obese brown rats. "Hold him for a second," Darren said, foisting the rat into my reluctant hands. The rat trembled in my palms, inactive with fear. "This is Jabba," Darren said, reaching into his duffel bag. "Grab his tail." I half-heartedly gripped the rat's tail with my right forefinger and thumb. Darren then pulled a machete from his duffel bag. "What the fuck is that?" "Granddad's machete." The machete was longer than Darren's right arm. It had a tan wooden handle and a large wide blade, rusting at its flat sides, but oiled and silver and gleaming on its cutting edge. "No, you really gotta get a good grip on his tail or you'll lose him," Darren said. "Really wrap your fist around the tail." "You gotta hold it tight like you were holding your dick, bell end, because he'll take off," Eric said. I gripped the tail tight in my fist. Darren pulled a red cloth like a large handkerchief from his duffel bag. "Okay, now place him on the septic, but don't let him go," he said. "Maybe Eric should hold him," I said. "You're holding him," Darren said. Something unhinged in his eyes, something unpredictable. There was a concrete underground septic tank with a heavy red metal lid by the bottle bins. I placed Jabba gently on the tank, my right hand gripping his tail. "Don't move a muscle, Tink," Darren said. Darren rolled the large red handkerchief into a blindfold and wrapped it around his eyes, resting on his knees like a Japanese warrior about to drive a blade into his own heart. "Oh, for fuck's sake, Darren, seriously?" I said. "Don't move, Tink," barked Eric, standing over me. "Don't worry, I've done this twice already," Darren said. Jabba, poor dumb rat, was as fierce, stiff and meek as I was. He turned to me with his teeth rattling up and down, confused and terrified. Darren gripped the machete handle with both hands and raised it slowly and methodically above his head, the unsubtle instrument's cutting blade sparkling for a moment in the full sun that was lighting this hellish stage. "Wait, Darren, you're going to chop my hand off," I stammered. "Bullshit," Eric said. "He's ninja blood. He can see your hand better in his mind than he can with his actual eyes." Eric put a secure hand on my shoulder to keep me in place. "Just don't fucking move," he said. Darren took a deep breath, exhaled. I took one last look at Jabba, his body cringing with fear, motionless, like he thought if he just stayed still, we might forget he was even there. Darren's machete dropped down in a swift and violent whoosh, and the oiled and gleaming blade dug into the septic tank lid with a brief yellow spark, a centimetre from my closed fist. Darren slipped his blindfold off in triumph to gaze upon the bloody remains of Jabba the rat. But there was nothing to see. Jabba had vanished. "What the fuck, Tink?" Darren shouted, his Vietnamese accent more evident in anger. "He let him run!" Eric screamed. "He let him run!" Eric wrapped his arm around my neck, the foul stench of his armpit like an old swamp. I caught sight of Jabba, scurrying to freedom through a gap beneath the mesh school fence into the thick scrub running alongside Mr. McKinnon's tool shed. "You dishonour me, Tink," Darren whispered. Eric spread his ballyweight over my back, forcing me flat onto the septic tank. "Blood for blood," Eric said. "You know the Warrior's Code, Eli Bell," Darren said formally. No, I really don't know the code, Darren, I said. And besides, I believe that ancient code was more of a loose guide than anything else. Blood for blood, Eli Bell, Darren said. When the river of courage runs dry, blood flows in its place. He nodded at Eric. Finger, he said. Eric reefed my right arm back out across the septic tank. Fuck, Darren, I hollered. Think about this for a second. You'll get expelled. Eric yanked my right forefinger out of my closed fist. Darren, think about what you're doing, I begged. They'll put you in juvenile. I accepted my path long ago, Eli Bell. How about you? Darren slipped the blindfold over his eyes once more and raised the machete with both hands high above his head. Eric twisted my wrist to breaking point and pushed down hard, clamping my outstretched and exposed finger to the septic tank lid. I screamed in agony under the pressure. My finger was the rat. My finger was the rat wanting to disappear. My right forefinger, the one with my lucky freckle on its middle knuckle. My lucky freckle. My lucky finger. I stared at that lucky freckle, and I prayed for good fortune. And that's exactly when Mr. McKinnon, early 70s drunk, Scotch-loving Irish groundsman, rounded the corner of his tool shed and stood, perplexed by the scene of the Vietnamese boy in a red blindfold, about to sacrificially sever the forefinger of the boy with the lucky freckle who was spread out across the septic tank. What the hell's going on here? Mr. McKinnon barked. Run! Eric screamed. Darren fled, indeed, with the stealthy reaction powers of his beloved ninja. Eric was slower to lift his burdensome belly fat off my left shoulder, but he evaded the clutches of Mr. McKinnon's thick, sweeping left arm, which eventually found a hold on the back pocket of my maroon cotton school shorts, making me look like Wile E. Coyote running on air as I tried to beat a useless getaway. Where do you think you're going? Mr. McKinnon said, his breath reeking of Black Douglas. Creeping now, hunched down, to the Dang family's fence made of tall brown timber palings with pointed ends. Lyle padding down Darren Dang's long driveway. Darren Dang's house is one of the biggest in Darra. 3,000 yellow bricks bought half price direct from the Darra Brickworks, shaped into a 3-story house with Italian mansion ambitions, but bad taste, cheap suburbia realities. The front lawn is the size of half a football field and lined with maybe 50 tall palm trees. I slip briefly down the long concrete driveway, then peel off right among the front lawn palms to stay out of sight. Closer to the house is a trampoline, surrounded by plastic princess castles belonging to Darren's 3 younger sisters, Kylie Dang, Karen Dang, and Sandy Dang. I scurry to the trampoline, duck behind the largest of the princess castles, a pink plastic fairy tale kingdom with a brown drawbridge fashioned into a children's slide, with castle walls big enough for me to hide behind as I watch Lyle sitting with Darren's mum and stepdad, Bick and Quan, on a lounge suite through the sliding glass doors of their living room. Back off Bick Dang earned her nickname with acts of unspeakable savagery. As well as the Little Saigon supermarket, she owns a large Vietnamese restaurant and the neighbouring hairdressing salon where I get my hair cut across from Darra train station. Quan Nguyen is more her humble, loyal servant than her husband. Bick is famous in my town as much for her selfless sponsorship of Darra community events, dances, historical society show days, fundraising flea markets, as she is for the time she stabbed a Year 5 Darra state schoolgirl, Cheryl Vardy, in the left eye with a steel ruler for teasing Karen Dang about having steamed rice every day for school lunch. Cheryl Vardy needed surgery after the incident. She nearly went blind, and I never understood why Bick Dang didn't go to prison. That's when I realised Darra had its own rules and laws and codes, and maybe it was back-off Vic Dang who had selflessly drafted them into existence. Nobody knows what happened to her first husband, Darren's dad, Lou Dang. He disappeared 6 years ago. Everybody says Vic poisoned him, laced his prawn and pork rice paper rolls with arsenic, but I wouldn't be surprised if she stabbed him in the heart with a steel ruler. Vic wears a light purple dressing gown, her mid-50s face made up even at this hour. All the Vietnamese mums in Darra have the same look. Big black hair in a bun, so heavily treated it can bounce light beams. White, powdery foundation on their cheeks and long black eyelashes that make them look permanently startled. Vic has her hands folded, elbows resting on her knees, giving instructions, pointing her forefingers occasionally the way the great Parramatta Eels coach Jack Gibson used to give instructions to his on-field brains trust, Ray Price and Peter Sterling from the sideline. Vic nods her head at something Lyle is saying, and then she points at her husband, Quan. She directs him away somewhere, and he nods obediently, waddles out of view, and then returns with a large rectangular styrofoam icebox, the same kind the Dangs keep their whole fresh fish in at the Little Saigon supermarket. Quan places the box at Lyle's feet. Then a sharp and cold metal blade presses against my neck. "Ring, ring, Eli Bell." Darren Dang's laugh echoes through the palm trees. "Geez, Tink," he says, "if you're trying to stay invisible, you might want to think about changing out of your old pyjamas. I could see that pale Aussie ass all the way from my letterbox." Good advice, Darren. The blade is long and thin and presses hard into the side of my neck. "Is that a samurai sword?" I ask. "Fuck yeah," he says proudly. "Bought it at the pawn shop. Been sharpening it for 6 straight hours today. Reckon I could take your head off in one slice. Wanna see?" "How would I see it if I don't have a head?" "Your brain still works even after it gets chopped off. It'd be cool. Your eyeballs looking up from the ground, me waving at you, holding your headless body. Fuck! What a funny way to go out." "Yeah, I'm laughing my head off." Darren howls. "That's good, Tink," he says. Then, on a dime, he turns serious, pushes the blade harder against my neck. "Why are you spying on your dad?" "He's not my dad." "Who is he?" "He's my mum's boyfriend." "He good?" "Good at what?" The blade isn't pushing so hard against my neck now. "Good to your mum?" "Yeah, he's real good." Darren relaxes the sword, walks over to the trampoline, parks his backside on the edge of the trampoline, his legs hanging over the steel springs connected to the black bounce canvas. He's dressed all in black. His black sweater and tracksuit pants are as black as his bowl haircut. "You want to smoke?" "Sure." He moves his sword, spears it into the ground to make room for me on the trampoline's edge. He takes 2 smokes from a soft white packet with no branding, lights them in his mouth and hands me one. I suck a tentative drag and it burns my insides, makes me cough hard. Darren laughs. "North Vietnam durries, Tink." He smiles. "Kick like a mule. Good buzz, though." I nod heartily, my head spinning with the second drag. We look up through the living room sliding doors at Lyle and Vic and Quan talking over the styrofoam icebox. "Won't they see us?" I ask. "Nah," Darren says. "They don't notice shit when they're doing business. Fucking amateurs. It'll be their undoing." "What are they doing up there?" "You don't know?" I shake my head. Darren smiles. "Come on, Tink. You must know. You might be full Aussie, but you're not that fucking dumb." I smile. "The box is full of heroin," I say. Darren blows cigarette smoke into the night. "And?" he says. "And the purple firework was some kind of secret alert system. It's how your mum lets her clients know their orders are ready." Darren smiles. "Order up," he says. "Different coloured fireworks for different dealers. Very good, Flathead, Darren says. Your good man up there is running for his boss.
Titus Brosh, I say. Titus Brosh, the Lord of Limbs.
Darren drags on his cigarette, nodding. When did you work all this out? Just now. Darren smiles. How do you feel? I say nothing. Darren chuckles. He hops off the trampoline, picks up his samurai sword. You feel like stabbing something? I dwell on this curious opportunity for a moment. Yes, Darren, I do. The car is parked 2 blocks from Darren's house in Winslow Street, outside a small, low-set box of a home with its lights out. It's a small jelly bean dark green Holden Gemini. Darren pulls a black balaclava from the back of his pants and slips it over his head. From his pants pocket, he pulls a stocking. Here, put this on, he says, creeping low towards the car. Where'd this come from? Mum's dirty clothes basket. I'll pass, thanks. Don't worry, they slip on fine. She's got fat thighs for a Vietnamese woman. This is Father Munro's car, I say. Darren nods, hopping quietly onto the car's bonnet. His weight makes a dent in the car's old rusting metal. What the fuck are you doing? I ask. Shh, Darren whispers, one arm down on Father Munro's windscreen to prop his weight as he crawls up and stands in the centre of the car's roof. Come on, don't fuck with Father Munro's car. Father Munro. Earnest and ageing Father Munro. Softly spoken retired priest from Glasgow via Darwin and Townsville and Emerald in Queensland's Central Highlands. Butt of jokes, keeper of sins and frozen paper cups of orange and lime cordial that he keeps in his downstairs freezer and gives to permanently thirsty local kids like August and me. What did he ever do to you? Nothing, Darren says. He did nothing to me. It was Froggy Mills he did something to. He's a good man. Let's just get out of here. Good man? Darren echoes. That's not what Froggy says. Froggy says Father Munro pays him a tenner every Sunday after Mass to show him his dick while he whacks off. That's bullshit. Froggy doesn't bullshit. He's religious. Father Munro told him it's a sin to bullshit, but it's not a sin, of course, to show a 75-year-old man your bat and balls. You won't even get through the metal. Darren taps his shoe on the car roof. That's thin metal, half rusted out. This blade has been sharpened for 6 hours straight. Finest Japanese steel all the way from the Mill Street pawnbrokers. Through the holes in his balaclava, Darren closes his eyes. He raises the blade high with both fists gripping the handle, concentrating on something inside, like an old warrior about to ritually end the life of his best friend, or his favourite Australian suburban get-about motorcar. Shit, I say, frantically pulling Bic Dang's unwashed stocking over my head. Wake up! Time to die! Darren says. He drives the sword down and it stabs into the Gemini with a shriek of metal on metal. The first third of the blade pierces the car roof like Excalibur in stone. Darren's mouth drops open. Fuck, it went through. He beams. You see that, Tink? A light goes on in Father Munro's house. Come on, let's go, I bark. Darren reefs at the sword handle, but the lodged shaft doesn't move. He tugs hard 3 times with both hands. It won't come. He bends the top end of the blade shaft back towards himself, then forward, but the bottom end won't move. A window opens in Father Munro's living room. Hey, what are you doing? Father Munro bellows through a half-open window. Come on, let's go, I urge. Father Munro opens his front door and steams down his pathway to his gate. Get off my car! He screams. Fuck! Darren says, leaping off the back of the car. Father Munro reaches his car and sees the samurai sword twanging back and forth, its mystical shaft speared inexplicably through the top of the parked car. Darren turns around at a safe distance, joyously waving around the Vietnamese cock he's pulled from his pants. "Just 10 dong for this donger, father!" he screams. Still night air and 2 boys smoking on a gutter. Stars up there. The cane toad down here has been flattened by a car tyre on the bitumen road a metre from my right foot. Its pink tongue has exploded from its mouth, so it looks like the toad was flattened halfway through eating a raspberry lolly snake. "Sucks, doesn't it?" Darren says. "What?" "Growing up, thinking you were with the good guys, when all along you were running with the bad guys." "I'm not running with the bad guys." Darren shrugs. "We'll see," he says. "I remember when I first found out Mum was in the game. Cops burst through our door when we were living over in Inala. Turned the place upside down. I was 7 years old and shit my pants. I actually shit my pants. The cops stripped Bic Dang naked, threw her against fibro walls, smashed household items with relish. Darren was watching The Partridge Family on a large national television that detectives tipped over looking for drugs. It was fucking mad. Stuff breaking everywhere. Mum screaming at them, kicking her legs, scratching them and shit. They dragged Mum away out the front door and left me alone on the floor of the lounge room crying like a bitch. Huge big dump in my dax. I was so stunned. I was just watching that Partridge mum talking to her kids upside down on the telly. I shake my head. "That's insane," I say. "That's the game." Darren shrugs. "About 2 years later, Mum gave it to me straight. We were key players. I felt like you're feeling now." He says this sinking feeling inside me is the realisation that I'm with the bad guys, but I'm not the baddest of the bad guys. The baddest guys just work for you, he says. Paid killers, humorless and mad, he says. Ex-army, ex-prison, ex-human. Single men in their 30s and 40s. Mysterious bastards, weirder than the kind who squish avocados between their fingers at fruit and veg markets. The kind who will squeeze a man's neck until it squishes. All the villains operating between the cracks in this quiet city. Thieves and cons, and men who rape and kill children. Assassins of a kind, but not the kind we love from the Octagon. These men wear flip-flops and stubbies shorts. They stab people not with samurai swords, but with the knives they use to slice Sunday roast when their widowed mothers drop in. Suburban psychopaths. Darren's mentors. They don't work for me, I say. Well, they work for your dad. Darren says, he's not my dad. Oh, forgot, sorry. Where's your real dad? Bracken Ridge. You good? Everybody wants to measure the adult men in my life by goodness. I measure them in details, in memories, in the times they said my name. Never found out, I say. What's with you and men being good? Never met a good one, that's all, he says. Adult men, Tink. Most fucked up creatures on the planet. Don't ever trust them. Where's your real dad? I ask. Darren stands up from the gutter, spits a jet of saliva through gritted teeth. He's right where he should be, he says. We walk back down Darren's driveway, resume our places at the edge of the trampoline. Lyle and Bic are still deep into a seemingly endless conversation. Don't sweat it, man, Darren says. You just won the lottery. You've landed smack bang inside a growth industry. The market for that shit up there in the icebox never dies. Darren says his mum told him a secret recently about Australians. She said this secret would make him a rich man. She said the greatest secret about Australia is the nation's inherent misery. Bic Dang laughs at the ads on telly with Paul Hogan putting another shrimp on the barbie. She said foreign visitors should rightly be advised about what happens 5 hours later at that Australian shrimp barbecue, when the beers and the rums mix with the hard sun headaches and widespread Saturday night violence spreads across the country behind closed front doors. Truth is, Bick said, Australian childhoods are so idyllic and joyous, so filled with beach visits and backyard games of cricket, that Australian adulthoods can't possibly meet our childhood expectations. Our perfect early lives in this vast island paradise doom us to melancholy, because we know, in the hard, honest bones beneath our dubious bronze skin, that we will never again be happier than we were once before. She said we live in the greatest country on earth, but we're actually all miserable deep down inside, and the junk cures the misery, and the junk industry will never die because Australian misery will never die. 10, 20 years, I'll own 3/4 of Darra, maybe half of Inala, a good chunk of Richlands, Darren says. How? Expansion, Tink? He says, eyes wide. I got plans. This area won't always be the city's shithole. Someday, man, all these houses round here will be worth something, and I'll buy 'em all when they're worth nothing. And the gear is like that too. Time and place, Tink. That gear up there ain't worth shit in Vietnam. Put it on a boat and sail it to Cape York, it turns to gold. It's like magic. Stick it in the ground and let it sit for 10 years, it'll turn to diamond. Time and place. How come you don't talk this much in class? There's nothing I'm passionate about in class. Dealing drugs is your passion. Dealing? Fuck that. Too much heat. Too many variables. We're strictly imports. We don't make deals. We just make arrangements. We let you Aussies do the real dirty work of putting it on the street. So Lyle's doing your dirty work? No, Darren says. He's doing Titus Brosh's dirty work. Titus Brosh, the Lord of Limbs. Hey, a man's got to work, Tink. Darren puts his arm around my shoulder. Listen, I never thanked you for not ratting on me about Jabba, he says. He laughs. You didn't rat about the rat. The school groundsman, Mr. McKinnon, marched me by the collar to the principal's office. Mr. McKinnon was too blind, or too blind drunk, to identify the two boys who were intending to slice my right forefinger off with a machete. All McKinnon could say was one of them was Vietnamese, and that could have been half our school. It wasn't out of loyalty that I didn't name names, more self-preservation, and 1 week's detention writing number facts in an exercise pad was a small price to pay for my hearing. We could use a guy like you, Darren says. I need men I can trust. What do you reckon? You want to help me build my empire? I stare for a moment up at Lyle, still discussing business with fierce Bick Dang and her humble husband. Thanks for the offer, Darren, but, I never really considered heroin empire building as part of my life plan. Is that right? He flicks his cigarette butt into his sister's fairy castle. The man with the plan. So what's Tink Bell's grand life plan? I shrug. Come on, Eli. Smart Aussie mud crab like you. Tell me how you're going to crawl out of this shit bucket. I look up at the night sky. There's the Southern Cross, the saucepan, the set of white stars shimmering, shaped like the small stovetop pot Lyle boils his eggs in every Saturday morning. I'm going to be a journalist, I say. Ha! Darren howls. A journalist! Yep, I say. I'm going to work on the crime desk at the Courier Mail. I'm going to have a house in the Gap, and I'm going to spend my life writing crime stories for the paper. Ha! One of the bad guys making a living writing about the bad guys, Darren says. And why in the fuck you want to live in the Gap? We bought our Atari games console through the trading post. Lyle drove us out to a family in the Gap, a leafy suburb 8 kilometres west of Brisbane's CBD, who had recently purchased a Commodore 64 desktop computer and no longer needed their Atari, which they sold to us for $36. I'd never seen so many tall trees in one suburb, tall blue gums that shaded kids playing handball in suburban cul-de-sacs. I love cul-de-sacs. Darra doesn't have enough cul-de-sacs. The cul-de-sacs, I say. What the fuck is a cul-de-sac? Darren asks. It's what you're on here. A street with a dead end. Great for playing handball and cricket. No cars going through. Yeah, I love a no-through road, he says. He shakes his head. Man, you want to get some joint in the gap? That shit ain't gonna happen for 20, 30 years in some journalising bullshit. You need to get some degree, then you got to go beg for some job from some arsehole who'll boss you around for 30 years, and you'll have to save your pennies, and by the time you're done saving, there'll be no more houses in the gap left to buy. Darren points up into the living room. You see that styrofoam box beside your good man's feet up there? He asks. Yeah. There's a whole house in the gap inside that, he says. Us bad guys think we don't have to wait to buy houses in the gap. In my game, we buy them tomorrow if we want to. He smiles. Is it fun? I ask. What? Your game. Sure, it's fun, he says. You meet lots of interesting people, lots of opportunities to build your business knowledge, and when the cops are sniffing around, you really know you're alive. You pull off some huge import right under their noses, and you make the sales, and you bank the profits, and you turn around to your family and friends and say, God damn, look at what you can achieve when you act as a team and you really stick to it. He breathes deep. It's inspiring to me, he says. It makes me believe that in a place like Australia, anything really is possible. We sit in silence. He flicks the flint on his lighter, hops off the trampoline. He walks to the house's front staircase. Come on, let's go up, he says. I'm puzzled, mute. What are you waiting for? He asks. Mum wants to meet you. Why does your mum want to meet me? She wants to meet the boy who didn't rat about the rat. I can't go up there. Why not? It's nearly 1 a.m. and Lyle will kick my ass. He won't kick your ass if we don't want him to. What makes you so sure? Because he knows who we are. And who are you? We're the bad guys. We enter through the sliding glass doors off the balcony. Darren marches confidently into the living room, ignoring Lyle, sitting in the armchair to his left. His mum sits, elbows resting on her knees, on the long brown leather lounge suite, her husband resting back on the lounge beside her. Hey Mum, I found this guy spying on you all in the yard, Darren says. I enter the living room in my pyjamas with the hole in the arse. This is the kid who didn't rat about Jabba, Darren says. Lyle turns to his right and sees me, face filling with rage. Eli, what the hell are you doing here? He asks, soft and intense. Darren invited me, I say. It's 1 a.m. Go home. Now. I turn around immediately and walk back out the living room doors. Vic Dang releases a gentle laugh from the couch. Are you really going to give up that easily, boy? She asks. I stop, turn around. Vic Dang smiles, the porcelain white foundation on her face cracking around the wrinkles of her widening mouth. Plead your case, boy, she says. Please tell us why exactly you are out at this time in your pyjamas, flashing that cute white tush. I look at Lyle. He looks at Vic, and I follow his gaze. She takes a long, white menthol cigarette from a silver case, lights it, leans back into her lounge as she draws in her first puff, then blows it out, her eyes sparkling as though she's looking at a newborn baby. "Well?" she prompts. "I saw the purple firework," I say. Bick nods knowingly. Fuck. I never realised how beautiful she is. She might be in her mid-50s, early 60s even, but she's so exotic and so cold-blooded exciting. She has the presence of a serpent. Maybe she's so attractive at this age because she sheds her skin, slips out of her own body when she finds a new one to wriggle through life in. She keeps me in her gaze with that smile until I have to look away from it, drop my head to fiddle with the drawstring on my loose pyjama bottoms. "And?" she says. I followed Lyle here because..." My throat thickens. Lyle's fingers dig into his chair's armrests. "Because of all the questions." Bick leans forward on the lounge, studies my face. "Come closer," she says. I move 2 steps towards her. "Closer," she says. "Come to me." I shuffle closer, and she places her cigarette in the corner of a glass ashtray, and she takes my hand to draw me so close that her kneecaps rub against mine. She smells of tobacco and citrus-scented perfume. Her hands are pale white and soft, and her fingernails are long and fire-engine red. She studies my face for 20 seconds and she smiles. "Oh, busy young Eli Bell. So many thoughts, so many questions," she says. "Well, go ahead. Ask away, boy." Bick turns to Lyle, a seriousness across her face. "And Lyle, I trust you'll answer truthfully," she says. She fixes her hands on my thigh and turns me towards Lyle. "Go right ahead, Eli," she says. Lyle sighs, shakes his head. I keep my head down. "Bick, this is..." "Have courage, boy," Bick says, cutting off Lyle. "You better use that tongue before Quan here cuts it out and drops it in his noodle soup." Quan beams, raises his eyebrows at the prospect. "Bick, I don't think this is necessary," Lyle says. "Let the boy decide," she says, enjoying this moment. I have a question. I always have a question. I always have too many. I lift my head, stare into his eyes. "Why are you dealing drugs?" I ask. Lyle shakes his head, looks away, offers nothing. Bick sounds like my school principal now. "Lyle, the boy deserves an answer, doesn't he?" He takes a deep breath, turns back to me. "I'm doing it for Titus," he says. Titus Brosh, the Lord of Limbs. Lyle does everything for Titus Brosh. Bick shakes her head. "The truth, Lyle." He dwells on this for a long moment, digs his fingernails deeper into the armrest. He stands, picks the styrofoam icebox up from the living room carpet. "Titus will be in touch about the next order," he says. "Let's go, Eli." He walks out the sliding doors, and I follow him because there was care in his voice just then. His love was in it, and I will follow that feeling anywhere. "Wait!" barks Bick Dang. Lyle stops, so I stop too. "Come back here, boy," she says. I look at Lyle. He nods his head. I shuffle cautiously back to Bick. She looks me in the eye. "Why did you not rat on my son?" she asks. Darren is now sitting up on a kitchen benchtop running off the living room, eating a muesli bar as he silently observes the conversation unfolding before him. Because he's my friend, I say. Darren seems shocked by the admission. He smiles. Bick studies my eyes, nods her head. Who taught you to be so loyal to your friends? Bick asks. I throw my thumb immediately to Lyle. He did. Bick smiles. She's still staring into my eyes when she says, Lyle, if I might be so bold. Yes, Lyle says. You bring young Eli back again sometime, you hear? And maybe we talk about a few opportunities that have emerged. Let's see if we can consider doing business between ourselves. Lyle says nothing. Let's go, Eli, he says. We walk out the door, but Bick Dang still has one more question. You still want your answer, Eli? She asks. I stop and turn around. Yes. She leans back into the lounge, dragging on her long white cigarette. She nods, blowing out so much smoke from her mouth that a cloud of grey masks her gaze. The cloud and the serpent and the dragon and the bad guys. It's all for you. Boy receives letter. Dear Eli, greetings from B16. Thanks as ever for your correspondence. Your letter was the best thing about a month I was glad to see the back of. Worse than Northern Ireland in here lately. Few blokes have gone on hunger strike, protesting about cramped conditions, overpopulation in the cells, not enough activities for rec days. Yesterday, Billy Pedden got his head dumped in the 4-yard shit bucket for giving a bit too much lip to Quigsy, who was bitching about the cold outside. Now they've put a little rim inside all of the shit buckets so they're too small to fit a human head inside. I guess that's what you call progress. Big scrap broke out in the CAF on Sunday. Old Harry Smallcombe drove a fork into Jason Hardy's left cheek because Hardy took the last of the rice pudding. All hell broke loose and, as a result, the screws took away the television from 1 yard. No more days of our lives. Take a Boggo Con's freedom, take his rights, take his humanity, take his will to live, but for God's sake, please don't take his days of our lives. As you can imagine, the boys went apeshit over that and started dropping shits throughout the prison like they were apes. I wonder if that's where ape shit comes from. Anyway, all the boys are keen on hearing any updates Outworlders might have on days, so any insights would be greatly appreciated. Last we saw, Liz looked like doing a lag for shooting Marie. Dumb slut she is, even though it was an accident. She still hadn't found the silk sea scarf that I reckon will be her undoing. My shitter broke on Tuesday because Dennis had the runs from a bad batch of lentils they fixed us. Dennis used up his toilet paper ration and had to start using pages from an old copy of Sophie's Choice we had lying around. Of course, the pages didn't break down and just choked the shitter so the whole of one division could smell Dennis's inner demons. Did I tell you about Tripod in the last letter? Fritz found a cat creeping through the yard a while back. Fritz has been behaving well lately, so the screws let him look after the cat during day rec. We all started keeping a bit of food from lunch to feed the cat, and now it skips on through our cells at its leisure during day rec. Then one of the screws accidentally closed a cell door on the cat, and the poor blighter had to be taken to a vet who gave Fritz's little kitty a troubling ultimatum. Expensive surgery to have a leg removed, or it was a bullet between the eyes. Not quite what the surgeon said, but you get the picture. Word spread round about the crippled cat, and we passed a hat around, and we all put our month's wages into surgery for Fritz's bloody kitty. It had the op and came right back to us, walking around on 3 legs.
Then we had a lengthy discussion about what we were going to name the cat whose life we all saved, and we all settled on the name Tripod. That cat's become bigger than the Beatles in here. Glad to hear you and August are doing so well at school. Don't slack off on your studies. You don't want to end up in a shithole like this, because you don't want to find yourself all souped up on chloral hydrate and butt-fucked through the laundry fence by the black stallion, because that's what can happen to kids who don't keep on top of their studies. I've told Slim to keep me posted on yours and August's report cards, good and bad. In answer to your question, I guess the best way to know if a bloke is wanting to knife you is by the speed of their steps. A man with a killing on his mind starts to show it in his eyes. There's an intent to them. If they're carrying, you'll see them approach their victim slowly, eyeballing them like a hawk from afar. Then, when they get closer, they'll quicken their steps. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. You want to be coming at a victim from behind. Shove the shiv in as close as you can to the kidneys. They'll drop like a bag of spuds. The key is to shove the shiv in hard enough to get your point across, but soft enough to avoid a murder charge. A fine balance indeed. Tell Slim his gardeners never look better. The azaleas are so pink and fluffy, it looks like we're growing fairy floss for the royal show. Thanks for the picture of Miss Haverty. She's even prettier than you described. Nothing sexier than a young school teacher in spectacles. You're right about that face, like a dawn sunrise. I guess you won't tell her if you know what's good for you, but the boys from D-Wing send their regards. Well, gotta go, matey. Grub's up and I better get my share of bolognese before it goes the way of the dodo. Climb high, kid. Tread lightly. Alex. P.S. Have you phoned your dad yet? I'm not the best man to judge father-son relationships, but I reckon if you've been thinking about him so much, there's a fair chance he's been thinking about you. Saturday morning letter writing with Slim. Mum and Lyle are out at the movies again, keen film buffs that they are. They're going to see Octopussy. August and I asked to go. They said no again. Funny that. Fucking amateurs. What's Octopussy about? Slim asks, his right hand furiously crafting his letter in a remarkably neat longhand cursive. I pause from my letter to respond. James Bond fights a sea monster with 8 vaginas. We're at the kitchen table with glasses of Milo and sliced oranges. Slim's got the Eagle Farm horse races playing through a wireless by the kitchen sink. August has an orange quarter skin stuck across his teeth like Ray Price's mouthguard. Hot and sticky outside because it's summer and it's Queensland. Slim's got his shirt off and I can see his POW chic ribcage, like he's slowly dying in front of me from his diet of cigarettes and sorrow. You been eating, Slim? Don't get started, he says, a rolled cigarette in the corner of his mouth. You look like a ghost. A friendly ghost? He asks. Well, not unfriendly. Well, you're no bronze statue yourself, you little runt. How's your letter going? Almost done. Slim spent a total of 36 years in Boggo Road. He wasn't allowed letters for much of his lag in D9. He knows what a well-written letter means to a man inside. It means connection, humanity. It means waking up. He's been writing letters to Boggo Road inmates for years, using false names on the envelopes because the screws would never pass a letter on from Arthur Slim Halliday, a man who knows how to escape their red brick wall fortress better than anyone. Slim met Lyle in 1976 when they both worked at a Brisbane car repair shed. Slim was 66 then. He'd served 23 years of his life sentence and was on a release-to-work scheme, working in a supervised environment outside by day and returning to Boggo Road by night. Slim and Lyle worked well on engines together, had a shorthand for motor mechanics like they had a shorthand for their misspent youths.
Some Friday afternoons, Lyle slipped long handwritten letters into Slim's day pack so he could find them over the weekend and they could carry on their chats via Lyle's piss-poor handwriting. Slim once told me he'd die for Lyle. Then Lyle went and asked for something more troubling than dying. "What's that, Slim?" I asked. "He asked me to babysit you two rats." 2 years ago, I found Slim writing letters at the kitchen table. "Letters to cons who don't receive letters from family and friends," he said. "Why don't their family and friends write to them?" I asked. "Most of these blokes don't have any." "Can I write one?" I asked. "Sure," he said. "Why don't you write to Alex?" I took a pen and paper and sat beside Slim at the table. "What do I write about?" "Write about who you are and what you've been doing today." "Dear Alex, my name is Eli Bell. I'm 10 years old and I'm in Year 5 at Darra State School. I have an older brother named August. He doesn't talk. Not because he can't talk, but because he doesn't want to talk. My favourite Atari game is Missile Command, and my favourite rugby league team is the Parramatta Eels. Today, August and I went for a ride to Inala. We found a park that had a sewage tunnel running off it that was big enough for us to crawl into. But we had to come out when some Aboriginal boys said the tunnel was theirs and we should get out if we didn't want to cop a flogging. The biggest one of the Aboriginal boys had a big scar across his right arm. That was the one that August bashed before they all ran away. On our way home, we saw a dragonfly on the footpath being eaten alive by green ants. I said to August that we should put the dragonfly out of its misery. August wanted to leave it be, but I stood on the dragonfly and squashed it dead. But when I stood on it, I killed 13 green ants in the process. Do you think I should have just left the dragonfly alone? Yours sincerely, Eli. P.S. I'm sorry nobody writes to you. I'll keep writing to you if you want. I was overjoyed 2 weeks later when I received 6 letter pages back from Alex, 3 of which were devoted to memories of the times in Alex's childhood when he'd been intimidated by boys in sewage tunnels and of the violence that ensued. After the passage in which Alex detailed the anatomy of the human nose and how weak it is in comparison to a swiftly buttered forehead, I asked Slim just who it was exactly I had become pen pals with. "That's Alexander Bermudez," he said, sentenced to 9 years in Boggo Road Jail after Queensland police found 64 illegally imported Soviet AK-74 machine guns in the backyard shed of his home in 8 Mile Plains, which he was about to disperse among members of the Rebels Outlaw motorcycle gang, of which he was once Queensland Sergeant-at-Arms. "Don't forget to be specific," Slim always says. "Details. Put in all the details. The boys appreciate all that detailed daily life shit they don't get anymore. If you've got a teacher you're hot for, tell them what her hair looks like, what her legs look like, what she eats for lunch. If she's teaching you geometry, tell them how she draws a bloody triangle on the blackboard. If you went down the shop for a bag of sweets yesterday, did you ride your pushy? Did you go by foot? Did you see a rainbow along the way? Did you buy gobstoppers or clinkers or caramels? If you ate a good meat pie last week, was it steak and peas or curry or mushroom and beef? You catching my drift? Details." Slim keeps scribbling across his page. He drags on his smoke and his cheeks compress, and I can see the shape of his skull, and his short back and sides with a flat-top haircut makes him look like Frankenstein's monster. It's alive. But for how long, Slim? Slim? Yes, Eli? Can I ask you a question? Slim stops writing. August stops too. They both stare at me. Did you kill that taxi driver? Slim offers a half smile. His lip trembles and he adjusts his thick black spectacles. I've known him long enough to know when he's been hurt. Oh, I'm sorry, I say, dropping my head, placing my pen's ballpoint back on the letter page. There's a feature in today's paper, I say.
What feature? Slim barks. I didn't see anything on me in the Courier today.
Not the Courier Mail. It was in the local rag, the South West Star. They had one of those Queensland Remembers yarns. Huge piece it was. It was about the Houdini of Boggo Road. They talked about your escapes. They talked about the Southport murder. It said you could have been innocent. It said you might have gone away for 24 years for a crime you didn't...
Long time ago, Slim says, cutting me off.
But don't you want people to know the truth?
Slim drags on his cigarette. Can I ask you a question, kid?
Yes?
Do you think I killed him?
I don't know. What I know is nothing killed Slim. What I know is he never gave up. The darkness didn't kill him. The cops didn't kill him. The screws didn't kill him. The bars, the hole, Black Peter didn't kill him. I guess I've always figured if he was a murderer, then his conscience might have been the thing that killed him during those black days down in the hole. But his conscience never killed him. The loss, the life that might have been, never killed him. Almost half his life spent inside, and he can still smile when I ask if he's a murderer. Houdini was locked in a box for 36 years altogether, and he came out alive. The long magic. The kind of magic trick that takes 36 years for the rabbit to stick its head up out of the hat. The long magic of a human life. I think you're a good man, I say. I don't think you're capable of killing a man. Slim takes his smoke from his mouth. He leans across the table. His voice is soft and sinister. Don't ever underestimate what any man is capable of, he says. He leans back in his chair.
Now show me this article.
This is the end of CD 2. The book continues on CD 3. CD 3. Queensland remembers. No chance too slim for the Houdini of Boggo Road. He was regarded as the most dangerous prisoner in the British Commonwealth, the master escapologist they called the Houdini of Boggo Road Jail. But Arthur Slim Halliday's greatest trick would be walking out of prison a free man. A church orphan who lost both his parents at the age of 12, Slim Halliday began his predestined life of crime when he was imprisoned for 4 days for jumping trains en route to the shearing job in Queensland that might well have kept him on the straight and narrow. Halliday was a seasoned 30-year-old conman and housebreaker by 28th of January 1940 when he made his first escape from Boggo Road Jail's notorious No. 2 Division. Slim pickings. Houdini Halliday conjured his first magic escape by scaling a section of the prison wall that became known as Halliday's Leap, an observation blind spot invisible to guards in surrounding watchtowers. Despite public criticism over the strength of prison security after the one-man escape, this section of the prison wall remained unchanged. It was little surprise to the Brisbane public then when it was revealed that in a subsequent escape, on the 11th of December 1946, Halliday climbed over a corner wall of the prison workshops a mere 15 yards from the now mythical Halliday's Leap. Beyond the prison fence, he stripped off his cell garb to reveal the smuggled civilian clothes he was wearing underneath, and caught a taxi to Brisbane's northern suburbs, giving the driver a tip for his trouble. After a frantic and widespread police manhunt, Halliday was recaptured 4 days later. Asked why he made the bold second escape, he replied, "A man's liberty means everything to him. You can't blame a man for trying." Cycle of a Lifer. Released in 1949, Halliday moved to Sydney, where he worked for the Salvation Army before he began a roof repair business using sheet metal skills he'd learnt in Boggo Road. He changed his name to Arthur Dale and returned to Brisbane in 1950, where he fell in love with the daughter of a Woolloongabba snack bar operator. Halliday married Irene Kathleen Close on the 2nd of January 1951, and the couple moved into a flat in Redcliffe on Brisbane's northern seaside in 1952, mere months before Halliday made national headlines again when he was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment for the Southport Esplanade murder of taxi driver Athol McCowan, 23. The case's chief investigator, Queensland Police Detective Inspector Frank Bischoff, claimed Halliday fled the scene of the McCowan murder and rushed to Sydney, where he was captured by police after shooting himself in the leg when his own .45 caliber handgun went off during a violent wrestle with a valiant Guildford storekeeper he was attempting to rob. In a packed court, Bischoff testified that Halliday confessed to the McCowan murder while recovering from his bullet wound in a Parramatta hospital bed. Bischoff claimed Halliday's confession detailed how he slipped into McCowan's cab in Southport that fateful night on the 22nd of May 1952, and later held up the young taxi driver at a secluded spot at the Currumbin Lookout, further south. When McCowan resisted, Bischoff claimed Halliday battered the driver to death with his .45 caliber handgun. Bischoff testified that Halliday recited a poem during his confession. "Birds eat and they're free. They don't work. Why should we?" Slim Halliday, meanwhile, has vehemently maintained Bischoff framed him for McCowan's murder. The detailed confession, from its precise place names to its poetry, was, Halliday claimed, a figment of Bischoff's imagination. The Courier-Mail reported on the 10th of December 1952, Mr. Halliday caused a stir in court when Bischoff said Halliday had told him, "I killed him." Halliday sprang to his feet, the report stated, and, leaning over the dock rail, shouted, "That's a lie." Halliday maintained that on the night of McCowan's murder, he was in Glen Innes in the northern tablelands of New South Wales, some 400 kilometres away. Frank Bischoff would go on to become Queensland Police Commissioner from 1958 to 1969, resigning amid widespread allegations of corruption. He died in 1979. Before being sentenced to life in prison, Halliday declared from the dock, "I repeat, I am not guilty of this crime." Outside court, Halliday's wife, Irene Close, vowed to stand by her man. Black Days in the Black Peter. In December 1953, after another failed escape attempt, Halliday was dropped inside Boggo Road's notorious Black Peter, an underground solitary confinement cell, a relic harking back to Brisbane's barbaric and bloody penal colony past. Halliday survived 14 days in searing December heat, sparking fierce public debate over modern methods of prisoner rehabilitation. "So Halliday has been given solitary confinement," wrote L.V. Atkinson of Gaythorne to the Courier-Mail on the 11th of December 1953. "The miserable caged wretch, for instinctively seeking his freedom, is to be penalised to the fullest, foulest extent of our medieval prison system. The principle of modern legal punishment cannot allow the infliction of human torture." Halliday emerged from Black Peter an urban legend. The schoolyard kids of 1950s Brisbane didn't whisper tales of Ned Kelly and Al Capone over their morning tea Anzac biscuits. They told tales of the Houdini of Boggo Road. His knowledge of buildings, rooftops and tools, combined with his viciousness and daring, make him the jail's most closely watched prisoner, wrote the Sunday Mail. Detectives who have known him through his years of housebreaking say he can climb walls like a fly. Probably Halliday will never stop trying to escape. Police who know him say he will have to be watched every minute of his life sentence, which, if he lives to be an old man, means another 40 years at least of maddening existence behind the red brick walls of Boggo Road. For the next 11 years of his sentence, Halliday was strip-searched 3 times a day. The only clothing allowed in his cell was his pyjamas and slippers. 2 officers escorted him everywhere. His studies were cancelled. Additional locks were fitted to his cell, D9, and additional locks were fitted to D-Wing. Boggo Road's number 5 yard was converted to a maximum security yard, where Halliday could move at daytime within the confines of a steel mesh cage. Only on weekends was a single prisoner allowed inside the cage with him to play a game of chess. He was not allowed to speak to other prisoners for fear he would pass on his endless escape strategies. On the 8th of September 1968, Brisbane's Truth newspaper reported on Halliday nearing the age of 60 with an article headlined, "Broken Killer Talks to No One." The gleam has gone out of the eyes of Queensland killer and Houdini jailbreaker Arthur Ernest Halliday, the report read. After years under constant double guard and the most elaborate security precautions ever taken with any prisoner in this state, 60-year-old Slim Halliday has become a walking vegetable inside the grim walls of Boggo Road. But Halliday possessed an indomitable spirit. The prisoner's superintendent told media at the time, which rigorous punishment failed to break, and he was never known to complain about his treatment, no matter how harsh or uncomfortable it may have been. As his lengthy sentence diminished, so did Halliday's obsession with escape. By his late 60s, he was simply too old to scale the red brick walls of Boggo Road. After years of good behaviour, he was given the role of prison librarian, which allowed him to share his love of literature and poetry with increasingly interested inmates. They would gather regularly in the yard to hear Houdini Halliday recite the poems of his beloved Persian philosopher-poet Omar Khayyam, whose work he had discovered in a prison library in the 1940s. His favourite poem was Khayyam's The Rubaiyat, which he'd recite over the chessboard and pieces he meticulously crafted out of machine-turned metal in the prison workshop. "'Tis all a checkerboard of nights and days, where destiny with men for pieces plays. Hither and thither moves, and mates and slays, and one by one back in the closet lays." Reporter strikes gold. In the end, the greatest trick Houdini Halliday ever pulled was surviving Boggo Road Jail. He eventually escaped the prison by walking out the front gate after serving 24 years for the murder of Athol McCowan, with smiles of congratulations from inmates and prison officers alike. In April 1981, Brisbane Telegraph reporter Peter Hansen found the long reclusive Slim Halliday puddling for gold in a creek near Kilcoy, where he had paid $5 to the forestry department to live lawfully on forestry land as a prospecting hermit. "I never confessed," he said of his controversial murder conviction. Bischoff simply made up the confession he produced in court. Bischoff was a ruthless man, you know. It was my case that made him Commissioner of Police. I left Brisbane 2 days before the murder. I was convicted because my name was Arthur Halliday. Halliday said he would not fear returning to Boggo Road as an old man. "I practically own the place," he said. "In the end, they were using me as a security consultant." 2 years on, Arthur Slim Halliday appears to have dropped off the face of the earth. He was last seen living out of the back of his truck in Redcliffe, on Brisbane's north side. But the legend of Slim Halliday lives on inside the red brick walls of Boggo Road Jail, where Houdini's cell, number 9 in the D wing, remains empty. Simple logistics, prison officials say, though inmates are convinced they're yet to find a prisoner worthy enough to fill it. Slim? Yeah, kid. It says Irene said she would stand by her man. Eh? Well, she didn't, did she? Yes, she did, kid. Slim hands the article back to me, his long, tanned arms reaching across the kitchen table. You don't always have to be standing by someone to stand by them, he says. How's your letter going? Almost done. Dear Alex, do you think Bob Hawke is doing a good job as Prime Minister? Slim says he has just the right amounts of guile and guts to be a good leader for Australia. Slim says he reminds him of Ruffy Regini, the old Jewish German fella who ran the No. 2 Division tote with Slim in the mid-1960s. Ruffy Regini was a diplomat and a standover man all in one. He took bets for anything: horse races, football, boxing matches, fights in the yard, chess games. Once he set up bets for what the boys were going to have for Easter lunch, 1965. Slim says it was Ruffy Regini who developed the cockroach courier system. Do you guys still use the cockroach courier system? Winnings were paid in white ox tobacco mostly, but cons started kicking up a stink about delays in getting their rightful winnings on nighttime lockdown, just when they appreciated a cigarette the most. To separate himself from the other potential bookies, Ruffy Regini developed the cockroach courier system. He kept a collection of fat and well-fed cockroaches in a pineapple tin beneath his bed. Bloody strong those cockroaches were. Using threads of cotton from his blanket and bedsheet, Ruffy learned to tie up to 3 thin-rolled white ox cigarettes to the back of a cockroach and slip it under his cell door, send it off on its way to its intended punter. But how would he make sure the cockroach went where he wanted it to go? A cockroach has 6 legs, 3 on either side. Ruffy started doing experiments on his little couriers. He soon realised the cockroaches would go in certain directions according to which of their 6 legs had been removed. Take a front leg off and a cockroach will start moving in a northeast or northwest direction. Take a middle left leg off, the cockroach will start leaning to its left so hard he'll start doing circles anti-clockwise. Take a middle right leg off, he'll start doing clockwise circles. Put that cockroach against a wall, he'll follow it right along a straight line and be grateful to do so. If Ruffy needed to get a package to Ben Bannigan, 7 cells down the aisle to his left, he'd remove a cockroach's left middle leg and send it off on its great adventure, its top cigarette scrawled with the name of its destination cell, Bannigan. The brave cockroach would slip under every cell along its journey, and honour-bound cons would dutifully send it off again on its great odyssey along the wall. I keep thinking about how gentle their hands must have been, all those killers and robbers and crooks. I guess they had time to be gentle, all the time in the world. I've been thinking lately, Alex, that every problem in the world, every crime ever committed, can be traced back to someone's dad. Robbery, rape, terrorism. Cain putting a job on Abel, Jack the Ripper. It all goes back to dads. Mums maybe too, I guess. But there ain't no shit mum in this world that wasn't first the daughter of a shit dad. Don't tell me if you don't want to, but I'd love to hear about your dad, Alex. Was he good? Was he decent? Was he there? Thanks for your thoughts about calling my dad. You make a fair point. 2 sides to every story, I guess. I asked Mum for an update on Days of Our Lives. She said to tell you Marie was showing signs of improvement in hospital. Liz went to ICU to confess, but when Marie woke up, she said it was too dark to identify her assailant, so Liz kept her mouth shut and she seems to be able to live with the guilt. The first word Marie said when she woke up was Neil. But despite Neil being her true love, she said she could never be his wife and gave him consent to go be with Liz and their child. Talk real soon, Eli. P.S. I've enclosed a copy of Omar Khayyam's poem, The Rubaiyat. Slim says it got him through prison. It's about the ups and downs of life. The downside is life is short and has to end. The upside is it comes with bread, wine, and books. Slim?
Yeah, kid?
Arthur Dale. That new name you took.
Yeah?
Dale.
Yeah?
That was the name of that screw, Officer Dale.
Yeah,
Slim says.
I needed the name of a gentleman, and Officer Dale was about as close as I ever got to a gentleman.
Officer Dale stretched back to Slim's first lag in Boggo Road, early 1940s.
See, kid, there's all kinds of bad inside, he says. Blokes who start good and turn bad. Blokes who seem bad but aren't bad at all. And then there's the blokes who are bad in blood and bone because they're born that way. That about describes half of those screws in Boggo. They took those jobs inside because they were drawn to their own kind. All those rapists and killers and psychopaths they were pretending to help rehabilitate when all they were doing was feeding their own evil beasts that lay dormant inside the cells of their own fucked up heads.
But not Officer Dale.
Nah, not Officer Dale.
After his first escape attempt, the Boggo Road screws came down hard on Slim, vigorously strip-searched him several times a day. During these searches, it was customary for the officers to bash Slim across the side of the head to instruct him to turn around, kick him in the arse when they wanted him to bend over, elbow him in the nose when they wanted him to step back. One day, Slim reacted, exploded in his cell, started throwing chunks of slop from his cell room slop bucket at the officers. They returned with the pressure hose treatment. One officer then came with 2 buckets of scalding water from the coppers that sat boiling in the prison kitchen. Another officer began shoving a red-hot poker through the cell bars at Slim.
Them officers were terrorising me like some rooster they were priming for a cockfight, Slim says. I had a prison-issue knife I'd been sharpening under my pillow, and I grabbed it and I stabbed one of those pricks in the hand. I was waving the knife at them, spitting and frothing like I was a sick dog. All hell broke loose after that. But amid all the madness, there was this bloke, Officer Dale. He was standing up for me. He was shouting at these sick bastards, telling them to leave me be, that I'd had enough. And I remember looking at him like it was all going in slow motion. And I was thinking that true character surely is best shown in hell. The true goodness must surely be best displayed in an underworld where the very opposite is the norm, when evil is living and goodness is an indulgence. You know what I'm saying?
Slim smiles, looks at August. August nods at Slim, one of those knowing August nods, like he thinks he did a lag right alongside Slim, his neighbour, in cell D10.
You know, Slim says, you dive that far down into hell that a wink from the devil starts to feel like a fucking handjob from Doris Day. You catch my drift?
August nods again.
Piss off, Gus. You don't even know who Doris Day is, I say.
August shrugs.
Doesn't matter, Slim says. Point is, I was in this daydream amid all this chaos, looking at Officer Dale, watching him trying to get these guys to lay off. I was so bloody touched by the gesture, I think I got a tear in me eye. Then I got a whole lot of fucking tears in my eyes because a second wave of screws came with masks and they threw tear gas bombs in my cell. They kicked the shit out of me, good and proper, and dragged me to Black Peter there and then. My clothes were still wet from the hose. Right in the middle of winter, that one was. No blanket, no mat on that one. Everybody goes on about the 14 days in Black Peter in the heat wave, but I'd take the 14 days in the heat wave over that one night with Black Pete wet as a beaver in the middle of winter. Spent the whole night shivering, just thinking one thing. That everybody has goodness in them? I ask. Nah, kid, not everyone. Just Officer Dale, Slim says. But it got me thinking that if Officer Dale still had some goodness working among those other bastards for so long, then I might still have some goodness left in me when I was done with Black Peter. Or when I was done with the joint forever. New name, new man, I say. Seemed like a good idea in the whole, Slim says. I pick up the Southwest Star. One of the supporting pictures in the Queensland Remembers spread shows Slim in 1952, sitting in the back room of the Southport Courthouse. He's smoking a cigarette in a cream-coloured suit over a white shirt with a thick collar. He looks like he belongs in Havana, Cuba, not the cell where he was going to live for the next 24 years of his life. How did you do it? I ask. Do what? How did you survive for so long without swallowing a rubber band ball filled with razor blades? Well, I was going to say giving up, but yeah, that too. Well, that article is half right about that Houdini magic crap, he says. What I did in that joint was a kind of magic. What do you mean? I mean, I could do things with time in there, Slim says. I got so intimate with time that I could manipulate it, speed it up, slow it down. Some days all you wanted was to speed it up, so you had to trick your brain. You get yourself so busy, you can convince yourself there's not enough hours in the day to achieve everything you want to achieve. And by achieve, I don't mean learning how to play the violin or getting a degree in economics. I mean realistic midday prison cell goals. I mean collecting enough black balls of cockroach shit in a day that you can spell your name with them. Some days, biting your fingernails down to the quick became a leisure activity to look forward to, like an Elvis double bill. So much to do, so little time. Make your bed, read chapter 30 of Moby Dick, think about Irene, whistle You Are My Sunshine from start to finish, roll a smoke, have a smoke, play yourself at chess again because you're pissed off you lost the first game. Go fishing off Bribey Island in your mind. Go fishing off Redcliffe Jetty in your mind. Scale your fish, gut your fish, cook that flathead on some hot coals on Sutton's Beach and watch the sun go down. You race that bastard clock so hard you get surprised when the day is over, and you're so tired from your daily schedule of bullshit head games that you yawn when you put your head on the pillow at 7 p.m. and tell yourself you're mad for staying up so late and burning the candle at both ends. But then, in those good hours, those sunshine hours in the yard, you could make them slow. You could pull them up like they were well-trained horses, and you could turn an hour in the flower garden into half a day because you were living time in 5 dimensions, and the dimensions were the things you were smelling and the things you could taste and touch and hear and the things you could see. Things within things. Small universes in the stamen of a flower. Layers upon layers, because your vision was so enhanced by the inactivity of all that concrete war watching that every single time you walked into that garden yard, it was like Dorothy walking into Technicolor. You learn to see all the details, I say. Slim nods. He looks at us both. Never forget, you two. You are free, he says. These are your sunshine hours, and you can make them last forever if you see all the details.
I nod loyally. Do your time, hey Slim, I say. He nods proudly. Before it does you, he says. That's Slim's favourite nugget of porridge wisdom. Do your time before it does you. I remember when I first heard him say it. We were standing in the engine room of the clock tower of the Brisbane City Hall, the old and glorious brown sandstone building in the heart of the city, towering over King George Square. Slim took us in on the train from Darra. He said there was an old elevator inside the high clock tower that took people right up to the top of the tower, and I didn't believe him. He knew the old lift operator, Clancy Mallet, from his farmhand days, and Clancy had said he would let us go up inside the elevator for nothing. But when we arrived, the lift was undergoing repairs, out of order, and Slim had to sweet-talk his old friend with a put your dog on it tip for race 5 at Eagle Farm to convince him to lead us up a secret set of stairs that only the City Hall staff knew about. The dark stairwell up that clock tower went forever, and Slim and old Clancy, the lift operator, wheezed the whole way up. But me and August laughed the whole way up. Then we gasped when Clancy opened a thin door that led into an engine room of spinning steel pulleys and cogs, the city's clockwork that powered the 4 clock faces on the tower. North, south, east and west, each with giant black steel hands tracking the minutes and the hours of each Brisbane day. Slim stared mesmerised at those hands for 10 straight minutes, and he told us that time is the ancient enemy. He said time was killing us slowly. Time will do you in, he said. So do your time before it does you. Clancy, the lift operator, walked us up another set of secret stairs off the engine room that led to an observation deck where Slim said Brisbane kids used to throw coins over the rail and 75 metres down to the roof of City Hall as they made a wish. I wish I had more time, I said, as I tossed a copper 2-cent piece over the rail. Then time struck. Block your ears, Clancy smiled, turning his eyes up to a giant steel blue bell I hadn't seen above us. And this bell rang loudly 11 times and near burst my eardrums, and I changed my wish to one where time had to stop in that moment for the wish to come true. You seeing all the details, Eli? Slim asks across the table. Huh? I say, snapping back to now. You catching all the details? Yeah, I say, puzzled by the testing look in Slim's eye. You catching all that periphery stuff, kid? He asks. Sure, always, Slim. The details. But you missed the most interesting thing about that article you have there. Huh? I study the article, scan the words again. The byline, he says, bottom right-hand corner. The byline. The byline. Bottom right-hand corner, eyes scanning down across ink words and pictures. There it is. There's the byline. What the fuck, Gus? I will associate this name with the day I learned how to manipulate time. This name is Caitlin Spies. Slim and I look sharply at August. He says nothing. Boy kills bull. Here's Mum through a half-open bedroom door. She stands in her red going-out dress in front of the mirror, hanging on the inside door of her wardrobe, fixing a silver necklace around her neck. How could any sane man not be happy in her presence, not be content, not be grateful for what he's got to come home to? Why would my father fuck that up? She's so fucking wondrous, my mum, that it fills me with rage. Fuck any and all of those fuckers who stood within a foot of her without first seeking permission from Zeus. I pad into her bedroom, sit on the bed near her at the mirror. Mum? Yes, matey? Why did you run from my father? Eli, I don't want to talk about this now. He did bad things to you, didn't he? Eli, that's a conversation we'll have when I'm older, I say. The go-to line. She gives a half smile into the wardrobe mirror, half apologetic, half touched I give a shit. Your father wasn't well, she says. Is my father a good man? Mum thinks. Mum nods. Is my father more like me or more like Gus? Mum thinks. Mum says nothing. Does Gus ever scare you? No. Sometimes he scares the shit out of me. Watch your language. Watch my language? Watch my language? This is what really shits me. When the clandestine heroin operation Truth meets the Von Trapp family values mirage we've built for ourselves. Sorry, I say. What scares you? Mum asks. I don't know. The stuff he says. The stuff he writes in the air with his magic finger wand. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, and sometimes it makes sense only 2 years later, or a month later, when it's impossible for him to have known it would make sense. Like what? Caitlin Spies. Caitlin Spies? Who's Caitlin Spies? But that's just the thing. We have no idea whatsoever. But ages ago, Slim and I were messing around in the Land Cruiser, and we were watching August write his little messages in thin air, and we caught him writing that name over and over. Caitlin Spies, Caitlin Spies, Caitlin Spies. Then, last week, we read this big article in the South West Star, this big Queensland Remembers spread, and it's all about Slim. It's the whole story of the Houdini of Boggo Road, and it's a really interesting piece. And then we see the name of the woman who wrote it squeezed down in the bottom right-hand corner of the page. Caitlin Spies, Mum says. How did you know? You were kind of setting it up for that, buddy. She moves to her jewellery box on a white chest of drawers. He's obviously been reading her pieces in the local rag. He probably just liked how her name sounded in his mind. He does that, latches on to a name or a word and runs it over and over again in his mind. Just because he doesn't speak words doesn't mean he doesn't love them. She clutches 2 green gem earrings in her hand and leans down to me, talking softly and carefully. That boy loves you more than he loves anything in this universe, she says. When you were born, yeah, I know. He watched over you so carefully, guarded your crib like all of human life depended on it. I couldn't drag him away from you. He's the best friend you will ever have. She stands and turns to the mirror. How do I look? You look beautiful, Mum. Keeper of lightning, goddess of fire and war and wisdom and Winfield Reds. Mutton dressed up as lamb, she says. What does that mean? I'm an old mutton dressing up as a young lamb. Well, don't say that, I say, frustrated. She sees my mood in the mirror. Hey, I'm just joking, she says, fixing her earrings in. I hate it when she puts herself down. Self-worth being, I believe, a fairly major root cause of everything from our living in this street to my outfit tonight. A yellow polo shirt and a pair of black slacks, all purchased from St. Vincent de Paul Society Opportunity Shop in the neighbouring suburb of Oxley. You're too good for this place, you know, I say. What are you talking about? You're too good for this house. You're too smart for this town. You're too good for Lyle. What are we doing here in this shithole? We shouldn't even fucking be here. All right, thanks for the heads up, matey. I think you can go finish getting ready now, huh? All those arseholes got the lamb because she always thought she was mutton. That's enough now, Eli. You know you should have been a lawyer. You should have been a doctor, Not a fucking drug dealer. Her hard slap hits my shoulder before she's even turned around. Get out of my room, she barks. Another slap on my shoulder with her right hand, then another with her left on the other shoulder. Get the hell out of my room, Eli! She screams. Her teeth are gritted so tight, I see the creases in her top lip, breathing hard, breathing deep. Who are we kidding? I shout. Watch my language? Watch my language? We're fucking drug dealers! Drug dealers fucking swear! I'm sick of all these bullshit airs and graces you and Lyle go on with. Do your homework, Eli. Eat your fucking broccoli, Eli. Tidy this kitchen, Eli. Study hard, Eli, like we're the fucking Brady Bunch or something, and not just a dirty bunch of smack pushers. Give me a fucking break! Then I'm flying. Two hands grip my underarms from behind, and I'm flying, hurled off Mum and Lyle's bed, shoulders first, head second, into their bedroom door. I bounce off the door and drop to the polished wooden floorboards in a bone heap. Lyle looms above me and kicks me in the ass so hard with his Dunlop volleys, his going-out shoes, one step up from his rubber flip-flops, that I belly slide 2 metres across the hallway floor to the bare feet of August, who gives a curious, "This again? So soon?" look to Lyle. "Fuck you, druggo cunt!" I scream, rabid and groggy, trying to get to my feet. He kicks me in the ass again, and I dive this time across the living room floor. Mum's screaming behind him, "Stop it, Lyle, that's enough!" Lyle's got the red mist rage I've had the misfortune of encountering thrice before. Once when I ran away from home and slept a night in an empty bus in a wrecker's yard in Redlands. Another time when I stuck 6 cane toads in the freezer to die a humane death, and those hardy and uneasy-on-the-eye amphibians survived in that sub-zero coffin all the way through to Lyle's after-work rum and coke, and he opened the freezer to find 2 toads blinking on his ice tray. A third time when I joined a schoolmate, Jock Whitney, on a neighbourhood door-knock fundraising drive for the Salvation Army, except we were really fundraising to buy E.T. the Extraterrestrial on Atari. I still feel rotten about that. The game was a piece of shit. August, dear, pure of heart August, stands in front of Lyle as he approaches for a third arse punt. He shakes his head, holding Lyle's shoulders. "It's all right, mate," Lyle says. "It's time Eli and I had a little talk." Lyle brushes past August and he hauls me up by the collar of my opportunity shop polo, then pushes me out the front door. He hauls me down the front stairs and along the path, through the gate, still holding my collar, his big street-fighting fists pushing against the back of my neck. "Keep walking, smart ass," he says. "Keep walking." He takes me across the street, under the streetlight outshining the moon above us, into the park opposite our house. All I can smell is Lyle's Old Spice aftershave. All I can hear is our footsteps and the sound of cicadas rubbing their legs, like they're excited by the tension in the air, rubbing their legs the way Lyle rubs his hands before an Eels preliminary final. "What the fuck's got into you, Eli?" he asks, forcing me on across the cricket oval grass, unmown so my shoes keep kicking up the black fur of the tall paspalum grass shoots onto my pant legs. He walks me to the centre of the cricket pitch and he lets me go. He paces back and forth, fixing the buckle on his belt, breathing in, breathing out. He's wearing his cream-coloured slacks with his blue cotton button-up shirt with the white tall ship cutting full mast across it. "Don't cry, Eli. Don't cry. Don't cry. Fuck, you pussy, Eli." "Why are you crying?" Lyle asks. "I don't know. I really didn't want to. My brain doesn't listen to me." I cry some more with this realisation. Lyle gives me a minute. I wipe my eyes. "You all right?" Lyle asks. "Me ass stings a bit." "Sorry about that." I shrug. "I deserved it," I say. Lyle gives me another moment. You ever wonder why you cry so easy, Eli? Because I'm a pussy. You're not a pussy. Don't you ever be ashamed of crying. You cry because you give a shit. Don't ever be ashamed of giving a shit. Too many people in this world are too scared to cry because they're too scared to give a shit. He turns and looks up at the stars. He sits down on the cricket pitch for a better angle, looks up and takes in the universe, all that scattered space, crystal. You're right about your mum, he says. She's way too good for me. Always has been. As far as I'm concerned, she's too good for anyone. She's too good for that house. She's too good for this town. Too good for me. He points to the stars. She belongs up there with Orion. I park my tender ass down beside him. You want to get out of here? He asks. I nod, stare up at Orion, the cluster of perfect light. So do I, mate, he says. Why do you think I've been doing the extra work for Titus? That's a nice way of putting it, extra work. I wonder if Pablo Escobar calls it that. Lyle drops his head. I know it's a hell of a way to make a buck, mate. We sit in silence for a moment, then Lyle turns to me. I'll make you a deal. Yeah? Give me 6 months. 6 months? Where you want to move to? Sydney, Melbourne, London, New York, Paris? I want to move to the Gap. The Gap? Why the fuck you want to move to the Gap? Nice cul-de-sacs in the Gap. Lyle laughs. Cul-de-sacs, he says, shaking his head. He turns to me, deeply serious. It'll get good, mate. It'll get so good, you'll forget it was even bad. I look up at the stars. Orion fixes his target and draws his bow and lets his arrow fly straight and true through the left eye of Taurus, and the raging bull is silenced. Deal, I say. Under one condition. What's that? Lyle asks. You let me work for you. We can walk to Bic Dang's Vietnamese restaurant from home. The restaurant is called Mama Pham's, named in honour of the stocky cooking genius Mama Pham, who taught Bic how to cook in her native Saigon in the 1950s. The Mama Pham's sign on the front is written in blinking lime green neon against an eastern red backdrop, but the neon P is busted and dulled, so the restaurant, for the past 3 years, has looked to passers-by more like a pork and bacon-based restaurant named Mama Ham's. Lyle holds a 6-pack of 4X bitter in his left hand and opens the Mama Pham's front glass door for Mum, who slips past him in the red dress and the black heels from beneath her bed. August walks past next, with his hair combed back carelessly and his pink Catch-It t-shirt tucked into his shiny silver-grey slacks, bought from the Darra Station Road Opportunity Shop 7 or 8 shops past the TAB, down from Mama Pham's. The inside of Mama Pham's is as big as a cinema hall. There are more than 20 round dining tables with lazy Susans spinning for 8, 10, sometimes 12 people per table. Beautiful Vietnamese mums with made-up faces and immovable hair, and normally quiet Vietnamese dads, loosened and laughing heartily on beer and wine and tea. There are great beasts of the ocean lying sideways in the centre of each table, glazed and oiled and boiled and crumbed and salted and peppered, and the whole deep-sea leviathans from the Mekong and beyond. Neptune, maybe. Big fat awkward bottom lips and slimy tentacle whiskers in colours of green and moss green and blue-green and grey-green and brown, black and red. Bic Dang owns acres of land at the back of Darra, beyond the Polish migrant centre, with soil like chocolate cake, where her old and wrinkled and wise farmers grow the piles of Rao Ram coriander, shiso leaf, hung K mint, basil, lemongrass, and Vietnamese balm that guests pass between themselves tonight like they're playing some children's party game called Hands Across the Table. An oversized mirror ball twinkles above us, and a Vietnamese lounge singer twinkles on stage, purple glitter makeup on her cheeks, and a turquoise sequined dress that shimmers the way a mermaid's scales might shimmer beached on the banks of the Mekong. She sings Calling Occupants of Interplanetary Craft by the Carpenters, sways to the crackly backing track, alien somehow, like she just flew into Darra on the kind of craft she's calling through that old microphone. Red tinsel lines the walls, running above the fish tanks with catfish and cod and red emperor and fat snapperfish with balls on their heads that look like someone's clubbed them with a cricket bat. There's 2 more tanks dedicated to the crayfish and the mud crabs, who always seem so resigned to the fact they'll form tonight's signature dish. They sit beneath their tank rocks and their cheap stone underwater novelty castle decorations, so breezy bayou casual, all they're missing is a harmonica and a piece of straw to chew on. They're so unaware of their importance, so oblivious to the fact that they're the reason people drive from as far away as the Sunshine Coast to come taste their insides baked in salt and pepper and chili paste. A staircase to the right of the restaurant runs up to a second balcony level with 10 more round tables where back-off Big Dang seats her VIP guests. And tonight, there's only one VIP, and his name is stretched across the birthday banner running across the balcony rail at the top level. Happy 80th, Titus Brosh. Lyle Orlick, son of O'Reilly, Titus Brosh says grandly, his arms raised welcomingly in the air, standing over the balcony rail. It seems Bick has pulled out all the bells, all the whistles, and all the stops to celebrate my 8th decade on this good planet. Titus makes me think of Bones. He wears a bone-white suit over a bone-white shirt and a bone-white tie. His shoes are brown polished leather, and his hair is as bone-white as his suit. His body is all bone, tall and thin, and he smiles like a skeleton frame would smile if it hopped off a biology classroom hook and started to dance like Michael Jackson in the Billie Jean clip August and I Love Like Lemonade. Titus's cheekbones are round like the protruding balls on the heads of Big Dang's tank snapper, but his actual cheeks have been slowly sucked inwards over 80 years on Earth, and when his lips tremble, and they tremble all the time, it looks like he's permanently sucking on a pistachio nut, or a vampire bat sucking on a human liver. Titus Brosh makes me think of Bones, because he's made a fortune out of bones. Titus Brosh is Lyle's boss at Human Touch, the Queensland Prosthetics and Orthotics Sales Centre and manufacturing plant he owns and runs in the suburb of Moorooka, 10 minutes' drive from our house. Lyle is a mechanic there, works maintenance on the machines that build artificial arms and legs for amputees across the state. Titus Brosh is the Lord of Limbs, whose vast natural arm reach has stretched across my and August's lives for the past 6 years, ever since Lyle landed the Human Touch maintenance job through his best friend, Tadeusz Teddy Callis, the man with the thick black moustache, seated 4 plastic white chairs to the right of Titus at the VIP dining table. Teddy is also a maintenance mechanic at Human Touch. Teddy is also, I have long suspected, a man with a lucrative on-the-side stream of Titus Brosh's extra work that Lyle spoke of earlier this evening. The man sitting next to Teddy, in a grey suit and maroon tie with black hair like a newsreader's, looks a hell of a lot like our local council member, Stephen Burke. The man who sends us magnetised calendars each year that keep Mum's shopping lists pinned to the refrigerator. He sips from a glass of white wine. Yeah, in fact, I'm certain that's our local member, Stephen Burke, your local leader, the calendar reads. Stephen Burke, right here at the table of Titus Brosh, your local dealer. The thing about Titus Brosh that reminds me most of Bones is that every time I see him, and this is only my second sighting of him, I get a shiver down my spine. He smiles at me now, and he smiles at Mum, and he smiles at August. But I don't buy that pistachio nut-sucker smile for a second. I don't know why. Just something in my bones. The first time I met Titus Brosh was 2 years ago when I was 10 years old. Lyle was taking me and August to the roller skating rink in Stafford, on the north side of Brisbane, but on the way he had to drop into his work at Maruka to fix a faulty lever on the machine that shaped the artificial arms and legs that paid for Titus Brosh's bone-white suits. It was the old warehouse back then, before the business was overhauled into the whole human-touch modern manufacturing plant of today. The warehouse was an aluminium shed the size of a tennis court, with giant ceiling fans to fight the suffocating heat of all that sun-baked metal housing 1,000 fake limbs spread across hooks and shelves that led past plastermakers casting body shapes and mechanics turning screws into fake bent knees and fake bent elbows. "Don't touch anything," Lyle ordered as he led us past endless leg limbs standing in a row like a Moulin Rouge can-can troupe miraculously dancing without their torsos. We walked through rows of arms hanging on hooks from the ceiling, and these arms had plastic hands that touched my face as we passed. And I pictured those arms connected to the bodies of dead Arthurian knights, impaled and hanging from long spears in the ground, and their hands were reaching out for help that August and I could not give, because Lyle insisted we didn't touch anything, not even the reaching hand of the great Sir Lancelot du Lac. I saw those arms and legs coming alive, reaching at me, clutching for me, kicking at me. That warehouse was the end of 100 bad horror movies, the start of 100 nightmares I was yet to have. "These are Francis's boys, August and Eli," Lyle said, ushering us into Titus Brosh's office at the back of the warehouse. August was taller and the older, so he walked into the office first, and it was August who captivated Titus from the start. "Come closer, young man," Titus said. August looked up at Lyle for assurance and an exit out of that moment, but Lyle didn't give it. He just nodded at August like he should do what was polite and walk closer to the man who was putting the meat and 3 veg on our table every night. "Give me your hand," Titus said from a swivel chair at the red-brown antique work desk. There was a framed painting of a giant white whale above his desk. It was Moby Dick, from what Lyle told me later was Titus Brosh's favourite book, the one about the elusive whale hunted by an obsessive-compulsive amputee who could have benefited from having a human touch prosthetics and orthotics sales centre and warehouse in downtown Nantucket. I asked Slim soon after that if he'd ever read Moby Dick, and he said he'd read it twice because it's worth reading a second time. Though he said second time around, he skipped the bit where the writer goes on about all the different species of whales found across the world. I asked Slim to tell me the whole story from start to finish, and for 2 hours, while we washed his Land Cruiser, he told me that thrilling adventure tale so enthusiastically I wanted Nantucket fish chowder for lunch and white whale steaks for dinner. When he described Captain Ahab with his wild-eyed face and his age and his thinness and his whiteness, I pictured Titus Brosh on that whale ship barking at his spotters high up in the raging wind, demanding to see his prey, his white whale as white as Titus Brosh himself. Slim turned the Land Cruiser into Moby Dick, and the garden hose was a harpoon, and he stabbed into the whale's side, and we grabbed onto the hose rubber for dear life as the whale dragged us into the abyss, and the hose water became the ocean that would take us down, down, down to Poseidon, god of seas and garden hoses. August offered his right hand, and Titus cupped it gently in his own 2 hands. He said. With his forefinger and thumb, he squeezed each of the fingers of August's right hand, moving his way along the hand, thumb to pinky. "Oh, there is a strength in you, isn't there?" he said. August said nothing. "I said, there is a strength in you, boy, isn't there?" August said nothing. "Well, would you care to respond, young man?" Titus said, puzzled. "He doesn't talk," Lyle said. "What do you mean he doesn't talk?" "He hasn't spoken a word since he was 6 years old." "Is he simple?" Titus asked. "No, he's not simple," Lyle said. "Sharp as a tack, in fact. He's one of those autistic boys, is he? Can't function in society, but he can tell me how many grains of sand are in my hourglass." "There's nothing wrong with him," I said, frustrated. Titus turned his swivel chair to me. "I see," he said, studying my face. "So you're the talker of the family." "I talk when there's something worth talking about," I said. "Wisely talked," Titus said. He reached out his hand. "Give me your arm," he said. I held out my right arm, and he gripped it with his soft and old hands, his palms so smooth it felt like they were covered in the Glad wrap Mum kept in the third drawer down beneath the kitchen sink. He squeezed my arm hard. I looked at Lyle. He nodded assurance. "You're scared," Titus Brosh said. "I'm not scared," I said. "Yes, you are. I can feel it in your marrow," he said. "Don't you mean my bones?" "No. Your marrow, boy. You are weak-boned. Your bones are hard, but your bones are not full." He nodded at August. "Marcel Marceau's bones are hard and they are also full. Your brother possesses a strength that you will never have." August shot a smug and knowing smile at me. "But I've got great finger bone strength," I said, flipping August the bird. That was when I spotted the human hand resting on a metal prop on Titus's desk. "Is that real?" I asked. The hand looked real and unreal at the same time, severed and capped cleanly at the wrist. All 5 fingers looked like they were made of wax, or wrapped in Glad wrap like Titus's felt. "Yes, it is in fact," Titus said. "That is the hand of a 65-year-old bus driver named Ernie Hogg, who kindly donated his body to the anatomy students of the University of Queensland, whose recent investigations into plastination have been most enthusiastically sponsored by yours truly." "What's plastination mean?" I asked. "It's where we replace water and body fats inside the limb with certain curable polymers, plastics, to create a real limb that can be touched and studied up close and reproduced. But the dead donor limb does not smell or decay." "That's gross," I said. Titus chuckled. "No," he said, with a strange and unsettling wonder in his eyes. "That's the future." There was a pottery figurine of an aging man in chains on his desk. The aging man was wearing an ancient Greek man dress and had oil paint blood streaks across his exposed back. He was mid-stride, favouring a leg that was missing a foot and bandaged roughly. "What's that?" I asked. Titus turned to the figurine. "That's Hegesistratus," he said. "One of history's great amputees. He was an ancient Greek diviner, capable of profound and dangerous things." "What's a diviner?" I asked. "A diviner is many things," he said. In ancient Greece, the diviners were more like seers. They could see things others could not see by interpreting signs from the gods. They could see things coming, a valuable skill in war. I turned to Lyle. "That's like Gus," I said. Lyle shook his head. "All right, that'll do, mate." "What do you mean, boy?" Titus asked. "Gus sees things too," I said. "Like Hegesus or whatever here." Titus cast a new eye over August, who gave a half smile, shaking his head, moving backwards to stand beside Lyle. "What things exactly?" "Just crazy things that sometimes turn out to be true," I said. "He writes them in the air. Like when he wrote Park Terrace in the air, and I wondered what the hell he was talking about. Then Mum came home and she told us she was standing at a set of traffic lights while she was shopping in Corinda when she saw an old woman just step right out into the traffic. Right out there, into the middle of it all, not giving a shit." "What's your language, Eli?" Lyle said, cross at me. "Sorry." "So Mum drops all her grocery bags and takes 2 steps forward and reaches for this old woman and yanks her back hard to the footpath just as a big council bus is about to clean her up. She saved the old lady's life. And guess what street that happened on?" "Park Terrace," Titus said, eyes wide. "No," I said. "It happened on Oxley Avenue. But then Mum walks this old lady back to her house a few blocks down the road, and this old woman doesn't say a word at all, just has this dazed look on her face. Then they come to this woman's house, and the front door is wide open, and one of the old casement windows is banging hard in the wind, and the old woman says she can't go up the front stairs, and Mum tries to guide her up there, but she goes crazy. No, 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 she screams, and nods to Mum like she should go up those stairs. And because Mum has hard and full bones too, she climbs those stairs and she walks into the house, and all the casement windows on all 4 sides of this old Corinda Queenslander are banging in the wind. And Mum paces through this house and into the kitchen, where there's a ham and tomato sandwich being eaten by flies, and this whole house stinks of Dettol and something darker underneath, something fouler. And Mum keeps walking through the living room, down a hallway, all the way to the house's main bedroom, and the door is closed, and she opens it, and she's almost knocked out by the smell of the old dead guy sitting in an armchair by a king-size bed, and his head is wrapped in a plastic bag and a gas tank by his side. And guess what street this house was on?" "Park Terrace," Titus says. "No," I said. "The cops came to the house and they pieced together the whole story, and they told Mum how the old woman had found her husband like that in the bedroom a month before, and he told her he was going to do it, but she demanded he didn't, and he defied her, and she was so pissed off with him and shocked by the situation that she simply pretended he wasn't there. She closed the door on the main bedroom for a month, spreading Dettol around the house to mask the smell as she went about her daily business like making ham and tomato sandwiches for lunch. Finally, when the smell got too much, reality kicked in and she opened all the windows in the house and walked straight to Oxley Avenue to throw herself in front of a bus." "So where did Park Terrace come in?" Titus asked. "Well, that had nothing to do with Mum. That was Lyle, who copped a speeding fine on Park Terrace while driving to work that same day." "Fascinating," Titus said. He looked at August, leaned forward in his swivel chair. There was something sinister in his eye then. He was old, but he was threatening. It was the sucked-in cheekbones, the white hair, the something I felt in my weak bones. It was Ahab. "Well, young August, you budding diviner, do please tell me," he began. "What do you see when you look at me?" August shook his head, shrugged off the whole story. Titus smiled. "I think I'll keep my eye on you, August." he said, leaning back in his swivel chair. I turned back to the figurine. So how did he lose his foot? I asked. He was captured by the bloodthirsty Spartans and put in bonds, he said, but he managed to escape by cutting his foot off. Bet they didn't see that coming, I said. No, young Eli, they did not, he said. He laughed. So what does Hegesostratus teach us? He asked. Always pack a hacksaw when you travel to Greece, I said. Titus smiled. Then he turned to Lyle. Sacrifice, he said. Never grow attached to anything you can't instantly separate yourself from. On Mama Fam's upper floor dining area, Titus places a hand on each of Mum's shoulders and kisses her right cheek. Welcome, he says. Thank you for coming. Titus introduces Mum and Lyle to the woman seated directly to his right. Please meet my daughter, Hannah, he says. Hannah stands from her seat. She's dressed in white, like her father. Her hair is blonde, white, a kind of non-colour, as if all life has been sucked from it. She's thin, like her father. Her hair is straight and long and hangs over the shoulders of a white button-up top with sleeves running to the hands that she keeps below the table as she stands. Maybe she's 40, maybe she's 50, but then she speaks and maybe she's 30 and shy. Lyle has told us about Hannah. She's the reason he's got a job. If Hannah Brosh hadn't been born with arms that ended at her elbows, then Titus Brosh would never have been motivated to turn his small Darragh Auto Electrics warehouse into the home of his fledgling orthotics manufacturing shop, which, in turn, grew into the Human Touch, a godsend for local amputees like Hannah, and a source of several community awards given to Titus in the name of disability awareness. Hi, Hannah says softly, giving a smile that would light small towns if it only had more time in use. Mum puts out a hand for shaking, and Hannah meets it with a hand of her own, raised from beneath the table. And this hand is no hand at all, but an artificial limb beneath the white sleeve, and Mum doesn't skip a beat as she grips that skin-coloured plastic hand and shakes it warmly. Hannah smiles, a little longer this time. Titus Brosh reminds me of bones because I am all bones, and the other man who just caught my eye is stone. He's all stone, a man of stone, staring at me. He wears a black, short-sleeved button-up cotton shirt. He's old, but not as old as Titus. Maybe he's 50. Maybe he's 60. He's one of those hard men Lyle knows, muscular and grim. You could chop him in half and measure his age by the growth rings in his insides. He's just staring at me now, this guy. All this activity around this circular dining table, and here's this stone man staring at me, with his big nose and his thin eyes and his silver hair that is long and pulled back into a ponytail. But the hair only starts halfway along his scalp, so it looks like this long silver hair is being sucked from his cranium with a vacuum cleaner. Slim's always talking about this, the little movies within the movie of your own life. Life lived in multiple dimensions. Life lived from multiple vantage points. One moment in time, several people meeting at a circular dining table before taking their seats, but a moment with multiple points of view. In these moments, time doesn't just move forward, it can move sideways, expanding to accommodate infinite points of view. And if you add up all these vantage point moments, you might have something close to eternity passing sideways within a single moment, or something like that. Nobody sees this moment the way I see it, defined as it will be for the rest of my life by the silver-haired creep with the ponytail. Ivan, calls Titus Brosh, his left hand on Lyle's shoulder, pointing at August, who is standing beside me.
This is the boy I was telling you about. He doesn't talk like you.
The man Titus calls Ivan shifts his focus from me to August.
I talk?
Says the man Titus calls Ivan. The man Titus calls Ivan shifts his eyes to a glass of beer before him, which he then grips tightly with his right hand and brings slow as a chairlift to his lips. He drinks half the glass in a single sip. Maybe the man Titus calls Ivan is actually 200 years old. Nobody's ever been able to cut him in half, to be sure. Bic Dang approaches the table, calling from afar. She wears a sparkling emerald gown that hugs her torso and legs all the way to her hidden feet, so when she walks across Mama Fam's upper floor dining area, it looks like she's hovering over to our table. Darren Dang shuffles over in her wake, visibly troubled by the smart black coat and pants he's not so much wearing as enduring. "Welcome, people, welcome, welcome! Sit, sit!" she says. She puts an arm around Titus Brosh. "Now, I hope you have brought your appetites. I have prepared more hot dinners for tonight than this one has had hot dinners." This is the end of CD 3. The book continues on CD 4.